107.5 The Fan.
WIBC HD2 W298BB. WIBC HD3 W228CX Indianapolis.
It's Kevin and Query.
I throw, you catch. It's not that hard, okay? All right, get the out of here.
I'm going to talk a lot about drills and fundamentals.
Watch it, watch it, watch it, watch it.
On 93.5
Watch it.
and 107.5
Boom, baby.
The Fan.
All right, Jake, starting to make the list, okay? I've got nacho cheese Doritos.
Okay.
Got Parmesan.
Okay.
Got bacon. Probably go for a bottle of red wine, to be honest with you. That's my early bread, milk, eggs list for this afternoon when I head to the grocery. It looks like you're going Honey Nut Cheerios.
Honey Nut Cheerios is always good. I went yesterday. I had to go to the mall, and there in Castleton there is
say hi to my dad. Oh, Keystone the Crossing.
Yeah,
where he's at.
There's a popcorn place called Market Square Popcorn. I mean, I'm a big fan of Just Pop In also, but Market Square Popcorn Company has a thing called Sweet Heat.
Ooh.
That's a must.
It sounds like a company during the winter months.
It's like a popcorn, and they came up with the flavoring. It's a kind of a barbecue, or excuse me, it's like a buffalo cheese flavoring, but with like a sugar added to it. I'm telling you, it's really good. That would be on my list. And then, I'm cool with just peanut butter sandwiches.
Okay.
But here's the thing. I'm going to say this again, and I know that we're 1 minute and 34 seconds into the show.
Are you going weather cynic on us 90 seconds into the show?
I'm 50 years old. 50.
Trust me, we remember the birthday.
Thank you. In my half a century on the planet, I can recall 2 weather episodes in this town that interrupted life for more than 48 hours. And I know that I'm not someone with a family of 5 or 6 mouths to feed. I understand that. But even still, for most people, if you just all of a sudden, people that suddenly get sick and can't leave the house for 2 days, don't you just naturally have enough food laying? I mean, sure, you're not making yourself 6-course meals, but you're like, I got enough food to get by for a couple days. I don't understand why everyone rushes out for milk, eggs. Eggs right now you got to remortgage, but why do people panic about this? Because we're supposed to get 4 inches of snow.
4 to 8 is what I've seen in the metro area.
24 hours of inconvenience at best.
I made sure to double check the freezer last night, just that
or at worst.
We were in good shape there, but it does sound like around midnight tonight. So, from a good news in the sports world standpoint, granted, I guess you're listening to a sports show, so you care somewhat about it. It does fall midweek, so that's nice. High school sports shouldn't be affected too much if you have events tomorrow night or, tomorrow afternoon. And then if you look at the college slate, everybody's out of town. IU's out of town, Purdue's out of town, Butler's out of town. I think IUPUI's up in Fort Wayne. And the Pacers, boy, aren't they getting out of town at a good time tonight?
Yeah, so they're in town tonight. They play.
So they play Chicago, and then they fly to Orlando tonight for the back-to-back with the Magic on Wednesday. But, for those that have not seen any sort of weather update, 4 to 8 inches is being reported, again, starting around midnight tonight, and it sounds like through a good chunk of tomorrow.
But weren't we supposed to get at Christmas when they shut the world down? I mean, I know that it was cold. But weren't we supposed to get wintry mix and ice storm and all that, and nothing happened? I mean, it was really cold for 36 hours.
Say that, Jake, and you're going to be Chef Boyardee at the next 72 hours.
Chef Boyardee.
I was going to say he would be doing that regardless. What are you talking about?
Well, I mean, what are we talking about
I
here?
do find it interesting when you watch the weather reports. I'm like, how does that line know where I-70 is every time?
I always say that. It's unbelievable, isn't it? It really is amazing.
So keep an eye on that.
Good morning to you on a Tuesday, which, by all weather accounts, might be our last Tuesday, right? Jay Query along with Kevin Bowen, Mark Dykton here as well. It is Kevin and Query on 93.5, 107.5 The Fan. And in addition to the fun that is the weather reports and Death Storm 2023, it's coming at just a perfect time because why not go out with the celebratory fun of a game show? And we are close to the unveiling of the Final Five list. Again, if you folks want Jeff Saturday, it's 800-GO-COLT. If you would like, for example, Raheem Morris, 800-GO-COLT-1. Dan Quinn, 800-GO-COLT-2. Phones will be open for 24 hours for you folks to vote when we come up with our semifinal list.
Do text message data rates apply?
What's that?
Text message data rates apply?
They do. Thank you.
Okay.
So
that's a good point.
Our friends in Canada, just so you know, it will cost additional to vote. But you can have your say in the Colts head coaching search in this, the Fantasy Coaching Search Sweepstakes 2023.
Joel Erickson going to join us around 8 o'clock to talk more about this. And one thing I want to clarify from yesterday, the NFL has changed rules almost on an annual basis of how head coaching searches are allowed to operate. And I didn't realize that if you're still in the playoffs, which the Colts have 4 candidates still in the playoffs, D'Amico Ryans, Shane Steichen, the OC with Philly, and then the 2 offensive coordinators in the AFC game, Brian Callahan with the Bengals and Eric Bieniemy with the Chiefs, you weren't even allowed to interview yesterday. I thought typically you were allowed to interview that first kind of 24-hour period right after your game is played. So if the Colts want to interview Ryans for the first time or do a second interview, and I think there's some legit interest in the other guys still left, in Callahan and Steichen and Bieniemy's case, they cannot do that until Monday. So I do feel like a lot of this is kind of NFL mandated. And again, look around the league. It's not like Carolina's naming finalists. I believe Carolina is interviewing Kellen Moore today. That will be their 10th interview. So I just think this is the new age of NFL head coaching searches.
I get it.
Mark, I don't know if you recall last year, I want to say the Bears interviewed 10 or 11 candidates.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
When Nick Sirianni got the job in Philly, it was at a double-digit number. But it does sound like Dan Quinn, who is out of the playoffs, of course, with Dallas losing, he is a name the Colts would like to bring in later this week. So if you're looking for second interviews, you can do that with the Raheem Morrises of the world, the Dan Quinns of the world, those that are no longer in the playoffs. But for those 4 candidates still playing, next week is when you can interview them. And you can interview them throughout the week, even if they're in the Super Bowl. Again, next week is that week off. So if you're looking for activity to pick up, guys that aren't in the playoffs, that can happen this week. Guys that are still in the playoffs, even if they win, you've got a full week next week during that Super Bowl off week to where you can either do them virtually or bring them in person.
I will readily admit, that this is me just being a cynic, because I appreciate, I had a conversation last night about this. With the Colts, with every interview that they're doing, sending out, we just interviewed Mark Dykton, we just interviewed Kevin Bowen, we just interviewed, by the Colts doing that, they are eliminating the speculative Twitter account that's like, sources are telling me the Colts are talking to so-and-so, sources are telling me so-and-so's interview. They've taken that meat right out of those Wolverines' hands, right? And that makes things much clearer to understand for the fan base. I get that. And I'm the first to admit, if they weren't doing it that way, I would be sitting here saying, what is taking so long? We don't even know who they've interviewed. This is ridiculous. So I get it. I mean, I am absolutely guilty of the what exactly do you want here, Jake narrative. I do think that to fans, only because I just go by what people say to me, whatever. I do think to fans, Kevin, there are a lot of them that's like, gosh, this seems like really exhaustive.
And you know what, Jake? Part of that, I think, is the Colts doing that. They have painted themselves in a corner where every single decision right now by the Colts is met with a skeptical eye.
That's fair.
I think it's fair in one way because, again, the Colts have kind of put themselves in that corner. I also think it's a little bit like, boy, they can't do anything right now. And again, when you go 4-12-1, you've had an owner step in and make the decisions that he's made. You don't get the benefit of the doubt from your fan base. One thing that I think we've seen Chris Ballard, I guess, evolve with, and now his second head coaching search. Jake, remember back in 2018, he interviewed, I want to say it was just 5 candidates. And Matt Rule, I don't think was like a very serious interview at the time. Basically, he went into that interview process and thought, I have my eyes set on Josh McDaniels.
Right.
I'll cover our bases that we need to, but that's the hire that I want to make.
It kind of like the Indiana hiring Archie Miller. This is our guy. That's where we're going, yeah.
And now Ballard looks at this and says, and this is one of the first things he said a couple weeks back at the season-ending press conference in talking about what he learned from that 2018 search. Basically, don't walk in there with the end already in sight. Be open-minded to it. And so I think you are seeing a guy that has changed his thought process. And again, Ballard has given the fan base no benefit of the doubt. Obviously, been, I think, extremely critical and deservedly critical of the Ballard tenure. But if he were to interview 4 or 5 candidates and make some quick hire, we'd be absolutely roasting him for doing the same thing he did.
That's fair.
In 2018. So this process, again, nothing imminent. Sounds like Dan Quinn later in the week. We'll see if Raheem Morris is later in the week. I still think there is and there should be interest in these 4 coaches we'll see on Sunday.
Are they going to, let me ask you this. This is where my cynicism will hit an all-time high. Okay. Are they going to announce their 5 finalists?
That's a good question.
Because that's where it starts to feel like, okay, this is starting to feel like American Idol.
I assume you'll get the same sort of announcement that we've gotten so far. We just conducted an interview with Dan Quinn. Like, not, hey, here's our list of 5.
Right.
But basically, if Dan Quinn comes in tomorrow, does an interview with the Colts, and that ends at 6 p.m., the Colts will simply announce, we've done an interview with Dan Quinn. I think if you're going to see any sort of final list, that's going to have to be a collection of agents leaking that information to the national
If you
media.
were, Kevin, right now, since we have, for the time being, we have suspended speculation and or discussion of Kevin's 30-win windfall over the Pacers wager, right?
I'm starting to get a little nervous.
Yeah. We've just...
Yeah, I know. We were doing some budgeting last
we've
night as a
decided
family,
not
and
to
I'm
talk
like,
about that with Kevin.
Boy, I had that built in for 2023, and we might need to put that on hold.
Okay, so we're going to stave conversation of that wager. So if you had to now put wager on who the 5 finalists will be, or better yet, we'll just simply say...
So this is not my opinion. I'm predicting what the Colts are going to do?
Correct. The 5 coaches that you believe will get a second interview.
Morris, Quinn. Let's go Saturday. Brian Callahan.
So far, we're 4 for 4 together. This does not make for good radio.
My 5th, I'm a little. The question I have on the 5th candidate is this guy has he narrowed his focus elsewhere? That would be D'Amico Ryans. Again, plenty of ties to Houston as a former player there, has already interviewed there. Denver was the other interview. He would be the 5th, I think, if he has mutual interest in the Colts. If not, I'll go Shane Steichen from Philly.
Okay, I'll go Wink Martindale for 5th.
Wink!
Just because I want to see him do tic-tac-toe.
How much different is the who you think it'll be and who you want it to be?
Well, yeah, I would not have Saturday, certainly, on the list. I'd probably throw D'Amico Ryans or Mike Kafka.
But this is what, to me,
to round out that group.
This is the hilarity of all this to me. We already know, factually, if we are to take the Colts for their word, and they've, for the most part, been pretty transparent, this is all, I'm not going to say window dressing, but this is all theater that might mean nothing. Because Chris Ballard is the one conducting all of this, and he, by his own admission and own word in the press conference, is not the one that makes the final decision. So this is all part of what he is going to then recommend. And then...
A lot of work for a recommendation that could be turned down.
I don't disagree, but...
I guess you're getting paid pretty handsomely, though.
Right. But Kevin, correct me if I'm wrong, he was pretty adamant or pretty clear, pretty transparent about the fact that he will make a suggestion and Jim Irsay will make the hire.
Right. Mm-hmm. And again, I got the vibe that the interest level in Jeff Saturday is nowhere near that of Jim Irsay's interest level.
Correct.
In Jeff Saturday. Something I do want to bring up maybe a little bit later today, Jake, is I went on with it was Dane Fife and Charlie Clifford on Friday, and Dane was a little bit more in the higher Jeff Saturday camp. And so I tried to explain to him, I guess, like where I was coming from in the almost in a way, like if Scott Dolson would have hired Dane Fife last head coaching search, I don't think you had that many people like questioning Dane Fife's resume. I mean, it's a very accomplished resume. The top assistant at the best Big Ten program over the last 10 years.
Right.
Obviously a former player, had decent success at Fort Wayne. The Jeff Saturday hire is like if Scott Dolson would have hired Kyle Hornsby or Jared Odell. Insert whoever else in that 2002 team that has not coached at all.
Or like Eric Sir, who's doing the radio commentary.
Yeah, and I would say even somebody more removed than that from the inner workings of the program on a daily basis.
Right.
If you want to go Colts Super Bowl team, couldn't you have hired Cato June? A guy that's actually coached for the last decade at the college and the NFL. I mean, hell, Reggie Wayne.
Yeah.
Had a little bit more on that front. So, again, we can get more into that as the day moves along. Pacers back in action tonight. They've got the Bulls, Purdue, up to number 1 in the rankings. I love this Purdue stat that they threw out there yesterday, all right? So, again, Purdue up to number 1. Zach Edey stat. Through the first 20 games of the season, you have 3 major conference basketball players that have averaged at least 20 and 13 since the turn of the century. Zach Edey is one of them. Can you name the other 2?
Okay, since the year 2000?
Since the year 2000, 20 and 13 in the first 20 games of the season.
Okay, just allow me to ask this. Are either one of these two yes, that makes perfect sense?
Yes.
Kevin Durant.
Undoubtedly one of them. No, but you were extremely close with the Kevin Durant guess in age and geography.
Boy, age and geography in terms of where he played collegiately?
Correct. A freak athlete, particularly in college.
LaMarcus Aldridge?
Blake Griffin.
Yeah, okay.
And the other one, my passwords, Luke Herringody.
How about that?
Zach Edey, Blake Griffin, and Luke Herringody.
I always thought Blake Griffin was tremendously overrated. Dynamic player if you need a fast break and somebody's got to dunk over a Kia. You want anything else done? Okay.
He put up a lot of points and rebounds for being overrated.
He did. He is the proverbial 25, 10, and 25 guy. 25 and 10 for 25-win teams for the majority of his career.
Trace Jackson-Davis, Big Ten Player of the Week. I don't think anybody surprised at all with that.
How about Kansas losing 3 in a row now?
So they lost last night to Baylor, right?
Yeah. I mean, they honestly, I thought they were the best team in the country possibly 2 weeks ago.
The thing about Purdue right now, when you look at them, Jake, in relation to other teams around the country, their resume,
it's unbelievable.
Stands above the rest by far.
Unquestionably on path to become the number 1 seed in the tournament, right?
Number 1 overall seed.
Yes.
Yeah. And again, it's probably a little bit too early to look into this stuff, but I'm not Matt Painter. I don't need to get them ready for Thursday night, so I can look a little bit more big picture. If you want to get technical and look at where Purdue is slotted within the bracket right now versus other teams geographically around Purdue. Because if you look at where the regionals are, there's a regional in Louisville. There's a first-round site in Columbus, Ohio State's arena. You would think Purdue would like to play there. Outside of maybe Tennessee, maybe Xavier if they get hot down the stretch, Purdue's got nobody in the Midwest or the Eastern time zone, really, that will threaten them for this number 1 seed. So I think that is good news for Purdue fans. I know it's premature to look at that. But even if you look at the Big Ten standings, I mean, right now Purdue is at 8-1. No one in the Big Ten has 2 losses. You've got 9 teams now.
9 times.
With 3 or 4 losses.
You see
in
Indiana
the Big Ten.
Starting to sneak back towards the top 25. They're second in receiving votes.
And that would be the second team in the Big Ten, right? There's no one else ranked in the Big Ten?
Correct. Did you see who broke into the top 25? Now 22nd?
Wyoming?
Nope. Wyoming's having a
St. Mary's?
Wyoming's rebuilding is what they're doing.
We might need to get Reese Monaco on to talk.
He's still talking about last year.
He couldn't believe Trace Jackson-Davis in the warm-ups.
He might still be talking about our interview.
For those that are unfamiliar, Mark, how would you recap what we're referencing?
10:03 when we got him off the air.
Yeah, we went long. We usually reserve, like, if we go long with, like, special guests, and Reese Monaco
He's the play-by-play voice of Wyoming basketball.
He was in awe watching IU during their open practice.
And he was very excited to be on Indy Radio. The Fighting Randy Bennett's of St. Mary's,
Boom.
22nd in the country.
We have
18-4.
We have a headline here. Former great offensive lineman and Colts coach leaves for high school job.
Saw that. Is that the first of many defections? Should we let people know who that is when we get to the morning checkdown?
Is that a headline that makes people somewhat curious? Or was that just a horrific tease by me?
Probably that as much as telling people what two teams combined for 280 points in the association last night, which we could also get to.
One thing, Tony East going to join us at 9. Jake, we are 2 weeks and 2 days away from the NBA trade deadline. I think Myles Turner is a very good player and a much-needed player for the Pacers in their struggles defensively, but I have a lot of reservations about paying him the type of contract that he wants.
Fair. I'll disagree, but fair.
Do you view center at all like running back in the NFL?
That is actually a pretty good comparison. But I don't think of Turner.
I think that's the root of my concern.
I don't think of Turner as the traditional center, though, because I think that they utilize him and see him in different areas.
What about with age? Paying that guy $100 million into his 30s.
Welcome to the NBA in 2023.
Paying that position into the 30s? Does his athleticism still stay there? Does his durability, which has lacked recently, stay there?
Also fair. That's always the gamble you take. But I think he's a critical piece of the unit that they're trying to build around, and the players that they foresee as part of their future build, I think, are very reliant on what he can do.
And again, a big chunk of this debate is largely out of the Pacers' control in the sense of they can put an extension in front of Myles Turner if they want to, but of course Myles can sign it or not sign it. And that is what so much of the next couple weeks will be about, something we discussed with Bob Kravitz yesterday. And I want Tony East to get a little bit more into the weeds of exactly what that contract can look like, the pros and cons of that, because it's a very important time for the Pacers. It sounded like Tyrese Haliburton did some non-contact stuff, but still kind of operating with one arm, which lends me to think he's going to miss a little bit more time. Thursday is supposed to be the reevaluation point for him. Again, the Pacers 7-game losing streak. They've got the Bulls off a back-to-back. Chicago won last night over Atlanta coming in here tonight. I'm Kevin Bowen, Jake Query, Mark Dykton. We are preparing for the apocalypse. Do you think they'll want us staying in a hotel tonight?
Snowpocalypse, Death Storm 2023. Call it what it is.
Dibs on the top bunk.
Excuse me?
Oh, we're all in one room?
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
At least adjoined.
When I was a kid, when we would take family vacations, because I'm the youngest, when we would always drive to Florida, and we would stay. My dad, I'll give my parents credit. My dad would make like a big deal about, our vacation starts in Valdosta or whatever. We'd stay at a Howard Johnson or a Holiday Inn on the way down, and my sisters would. This when we were really little, but my sisters would share one bed, my parents in the other, and then I would sleep on the floor in the hotel.
Oh.
And it never bothered me. And I took a road trip with two of my buddies out to Seattle, actually, in the mid-'90s, right after college. And we stayed at some motel one night in Idaho, and there was...
This is not the road trip with the 6th grade girl to Lawrence. I've had a few questions about that from some people. I've tried to give you the benefit of the doubt.
Different road trip, yes.
Okay, just want to clarify.
But I slept on the floor. They're like, "Are you kidding me?" Like, you're. And I got up and the shag carpeting was imprinted on my cheek. It was awesome.
Yeah, nothing like hotel carpeting.
Yeah,
I know.
I've never looked at hotel carpet like I want to lay on that.
My parents went the budget route, but you know what? When I look back on,
we did a little Hampton Inn indoor pool. That was a frequent.
I mean, I look back on my family vacations though, and there were so many good memories of things like that, like the holodomes and all that. It was fun stuff.
Oh, we did the South Bend Holodome. We would run into the Baton Twirlers convention there a few times. That was quite the scene. They're all practicing in the Holodome, and my brother and I are trying to play shuffleboard around them. Wasn't the easiest. process. He is Jake Query. I'm Kevin Bowen. Again, Mark Dighton on the ones and twos. Joel Erickson talk Colts head coaching search at 8 o'clock. Tony East at 9. A critical juncture coming up for the Pacers, not only on but also off the floor. Sounds like the weather should be okay, chilly, but okay today. It's tonight, turned into tomorrow, where things get
all gonna die
dicey. Kevin and Query, 93.5, 107.5, The Fan.
The Ride with JMV.
You know, honestly, I'm probably the only one that feels this way, but a guy like Dan Quinn speaks to me because watching this team play, how it responded to anything a year ago, it seems like they need a more firm, been there, done that type of coach, defensive coordinator or not. So that's why I like him more than I would any of these OCs or first-time coaches.
The Ride with JMV.
Weekdays 3 till 6.
On 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
A girl in Kenya dreams of becoming a doctor. An elder in Guatemala dreams of becoming part of a community. Reach out and change their world, and it will change your own. Unbound.org.
Do you need furnace or heat pump service? Do you need to find a well-trained dealer like Marshall Mechanical in Franklin? We'll find that American Standard Air dealer at IndyHomeComfort.com.
So, the other day, I bought an extremely chatty...
Boring story time.
Make that an extremely catty cockatoo.
You're welcome.
Apparently, the pet store won't take it back. But, hey, I'll manage.
I love that for you.
Just like I manage without home internet.
No, you don't.
Sure, my mobile hotspot is slow and makes streaming shows unbearable.
Oh, Bertie likes to stream.
But I'm making do. Oh no, who's this?
My lady friend. It's mating season, duh.
No home internet? It's not that bad. No, not there.
It is that bad. Don't settle. Switch to Xfinity and get one line of unlimited mobile and home internet together for $50 a month for 12 months with no annual contract. Go to Xfinity.com, call 1-800-XFINITY, or visit your local Xfinity store today. Restrictions apply. Requires paperless billing and auto pay with stored bank account, equipment tax, and fees extra. Reduced speeds after 20 gigabytes of data usage. Offer ends 3/21/23.
When you're an innovative business, every blinking cursor, every blank page is an opportunity. What will you do with it? Will you make something better or create something new? Our Dell Technologies advisors provide you with tools and expertise to do incredible things. Because we believe there's an innovator in all of us. For advice on smart PCs powered by Intel V Pro that's built for business, call a Dell Technologies advisor at 877-ASK-DELL.
Every pro is an MVP to us. As a Lowe's MVP's Rewards member, you can earn bonus points when you shop select products and brands. Then redeem them for exciting rewards like tools, sports memorabilia, e-gift cards, and more. Join today to become a member and start earning. Bonus points calculated before taxes and fees after applicable discounts, if any, subject to program terms. While supplies last. Points expire at end of calendar year. Visit Lowe's.com/MVP's bonus points for details.
The football playoffs are here, and nothing beats seeing your favorite team live. Not only does Vivid Seats have great NFL ticket prices, they're also the official ticketing partner of ESPN. And with Vivid Seats Rewards, when you buy 10 tickets, you get the 11th free. Download the app or visit vividseats.com today. Vivid Seats. Life happens live. Receive a reward credit equal to the average price of the 10 tickets purchased, excluding taxes, fees, and processing costs. See vividseats.com/rewards for terms and conditions.
Dan Dockage for Affinity Whole Health. Affinity is the leader in testosterone and hormone replacement therapy, and I got to tell you, I see why. Since I started a testosterone replacement program with Affinity, my energy, mental focus, drive, everything is up, and the physical benefits are amazing. Check them out at feelgreatindy.com. Guys, you can improve the way you look, the way you feel. You can build muscle and lose fat. Affinity will give you the roadmap. Go to feelgreatindy.com. That's feelgreatindy.com.
Love. It makes us do crazy things, like being the first one to say, I love you, or adopting a cat together when you're more of a dog person. Celebrate the madness of love with the perfect Valentine's gift from Haliburton Diamonds. Right now, half-carat diamond heart pendants in your choice of white, yellow, or rose gold are just $399.99, a savings of $500. Show her you're smitten with the gift of gorgeous jewelry at our best prices of the season. Hurry, Valentine's Day is Tuesday, February 14th. Shop at hellsberg.com or visit a store near you.
JMV here for Get 'em Associates. 2023 is going to be that year for that custom remodel. So you stayed in your home during the housing boom or bought that home knowing you wanted to make that one change. Jason Gedham and his team will provide a consultation about your custom remodel, interior and exterior, kitchens and baths, screen porches, and more. That's Get 'em Associates. 35 years of experience serving Central Indiana. Check their Google reviews and find them online. That's getem.com, GETTUM.com. Tell them JMV sent you.
The Morning Checkdown, brought to you by Ball State Basketball. Get your tickets at ballstatesports.com on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Last night in the association, I'd mentioned the two teams combined for 280 points. I don't know why there's really any reason people around here would be geeked about that, other than 150 is a lot in the game. That's what the Bucks had in a 150-130 win over the Fightin' Mottman Detroit Pistons. Jaden Ivey had 12 for Detroit. In case you're curious about the rookie out of Purdue, he is averaging 15 points per game on the season. Other winners in the association: Orlando, Chicago, Houston, Utah, Portland, and the Sacramento Kings, who got 24 out of former Indiana Mr. Basketball from Tech High School, Trey Lyles, last night.
Speaking of the Bulls, 1.5-point favorite tonight inside of Gainbridge Fieldhouse. It is a back-to-back for Chicago, Indiana back at home. Again, 7-game losing streak for the Pacers. Back-to-back for them now tonight and tomorrow. Tomorrow is in Orlando. Tyrese Haliburton still out, but here was the update on him getting back to the court from Rick Carlisle yesterday at practice.
Tyrese was here and he participated in parts of practice. He's getting a little better all the time. Don't have a timetable, but he actually participated in a little bit of the non-contact stuff full court, which was great to see. And any little thing that can be uplifting is important.
Again, it sounds like more elbow-related than knee right now for Tyrese Haliburton. Thursday was supposed to be the reevaluation point. It looks like he's going to miss a few more games past Thursday. As far as tonight's concerned, you have the Pacers and Bulls both tied for 9th in the Eastern Conference. So for those plugged into the playoff standings with, 34 games to go this season, I guess this game matters.
We're not far off from the Tankathon, right?
Actually, how many games are left?
What are they right now? What's their record?
Yeah, 34. 23 and 25, so 34 to go.
So they've got to go 27. They've got to go 7 and 27 down the stretch for you, right? You're fine.
Yeah.
You're fine.
Tell that to someone after 7 straight losses.
We have the swoosh. There we go. AP college basketball, top 25. Purdue back at number 1, just ahead of Alabama, Houston, Tennessee, and Kansas State, and what looks like actually the teams that are all going to be vying for the Capital One Bowl. Arizona, Virginia, UCLA, Kansas, Texas rounding out the top 10, although Kansas losing again last night to Baylor. The Bears are 17th ranked. Indiana, the only other Big Ten team in the top 27. That's because they come in at 27th. New to the poll is St. Mary's at 22. Coaches poll looking virtually the same. Purdue, Alabama, Houston, the top 3 in the land.
Speaking of Indiana, Trace Jackson-Davis, Big Ten Player of the Week, 33 and 12. You throw in 4.5 assists and 4 blocks. It was quite the week for Trace Jackson-Davis. Jake, he's got to end his career, top 3, 4 all-time scorer?
Depends on if he comes back.
Even if he doesn't, isn't he still going to be really high on that list?
He's having statistically as good a season probably as we've seen since, I would think,
pre-Zeller.
DJ White had a really good final year. Allen Henderson, I think the creme de la creme is Allen Henderson's final year. The highest single-season scoring average under Bob Knight, but he also was a rebounding, assist, and steals machine.
Who's the second-best team in the Big Ten?
When they're playing like they are right now, it's probably Indiana, but I realize in the standings that doesn't reflect.
Got 9 teams with 3 or 4 losses. Yeah, I'd make an argument for IU. I don't know, Michigan, Rutgers.
Rutgers, you got to give.
Michigan State, if they get
you got to give a tip of the cap to Rutgers, right? I mean, they've played well. Do you really think it's Northwestern or Penn State?
Hell no.
Yeah, I think it's probably Indiana. I mean, once Indiana had that stretch there, but kudos to Indiana and Mike Woodson, because it looked like they were teetering on disaster, and now, indeed, maybe they've righted the ship a
big
little
time. And beaten teams that are legit tournament teams by double digits. IU women got a win last night over Michigan. They've got a huge one Thursday with top 5 Ohio State coming to Assembly Hall. For the men's programs, it'll be Indiana at Minnesota Wednesday night, and Purdue is at Michigan this week. And Jake, we teased it a little bit earlier. Former great NFL offensive lineman and Colts coach takes high school job. Not Jeff Saturday. That would be Kevin Mawai.
And he was coaching where?
The assistant O-line coach for the Indianapolis Colts. He is off to Lipscomb Academy in Nashville to coach their high school team. The person that he takes over for?
The former Lipscomb Academy high school coach?
Correct, uh-huh.
Oh, boy.
You're not familiar with the Fighting Tigers?
This is the high school?
Correct. Lipscomb Academy, yep. Defending state champs.
Lipscomb Academy. Is their logo should be like the Rolling Stones logo, right? Wouldn't that make sense?
You could probably make a good argument there.
Okay, so you're telling me that they have a high school coach that is leaving, and I've heard of this high school coach?
1,000%.
Theoretically, then he has to have been a college star in the state of Tennessee. Is that right? Or
not necessarily,
a professional player in Tennessee?
Not necessarily.
He has no connection to Tennessee?
I don't think there's a ton of... I mean, it's not Peyton Manning by any means. This guy is a Super Bowl winner at quarterback.
Brad Johnson.
Right thought process there. Trent Dilfer going to take the job at UAB. How about the finalists for the head coaching gig? Kevin Mawai, Jason Witten, and John Kitna.
For the high school head coaching job?
Lipscomb
now,
Academy.
Did they also tweet out every time they interviewed somebody? We have completed an interview with Jason Witten. We will announce our final pairings, and you can vote on Twitter. Retweet if you want Jason Witten. Like if you want Kevin Mawai. Is that how that worked?
I did not see anything on that. And
what school? This has to be like a private school, right?
I texted a buddy of mine who lives in Nashville. He compared the school to kind of a Covenant
Park
Christian here from a size-wise standpoint. Park Tudor, I guess, would be a similar size as well. But not like this, incredible power that just is winning 6A titles necessarily in the Tennessee area. I do think it's something worth noting. Obviously, the Colts coaches, their futures very much up in the air. Did you catch the Reggie Wayne tweet from over the weekend?
I saw the one where he said, "Snow's coming, I'm out of here."
Damn, the coaching side of the league may be more cutthroat than the player side.
Yeah. People coming for his job?
I think it's just a reminder of the chaos that can ensue once we start to get some dominoes to fall in the head coaching search. We got a little bit of Colts news on that we can get to. Joel Erickson going to join us at 8, Tony East at 9. The Myles Turner contract situation. Should the Pacers shell out that money for their big man? We can discuss that as well. Kevin Aquari on a Tuesday.
The Pacers return to the field house to face the Chicago Bulls this evening at 6:30 on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Doing more in the community means that I get out and I volunteer.
Hi, I'm Hannah Yeagerbush here at Teachers Treasures, and we nominated David Barabee because he's such a great volunteer leader. He does so much for us to make our mission possible to serve teachers in Marion County.
And I'm Jiffy Lube owner Steve Sanner. At Jiffy Lube, we are proud to support Hoosier charities that use their vehicles to do more to make Indiana a better place to live.
My vehicle really allows me the ability to be where they need me. Either downtown, at the store, or out on a route, or working for the mobile operator.
Jiffy Lube of Indiana provides all of our Do More winners with free vehicle maintenance for a year. Because now at Jiffy Lube, our trained technicians do more to keep vehicles like theirs and yours on the road. Brakes, tires, batteries, and more. As well as Indiana's favorite oil change since 1985.
Jiffy Lube accepts competitors' coupons, so you don't have to choose between saving a few dollars versus treating your vehicle to Jiffy Lube's award-winning service. Click on JiffyLubeIndiana.com for a Jiffy Lube near you.
Hey there, it's Jake Query. Just the other day, my mom asked me, she said, Jake, it's Mom. Are you doing the mini again this year? I am doing the mini again this year, Mom. Thank you very much. Got my training underway, and that's huge thanks to the Good Feet store of Indiana. You might remember, I think it was last year or 2 years ago during the mini when I didn't think I was going to be able to do it because I had plantar fasciitis, which was grueling, and I'm like, there's no way that I'm going to be able to get out there and run. plugged my way through it, but it was not easy. And I've not had any issues since I got the inserts from the Good Feet store of Indiana. I had previously had a set of inserts, but went in and got kind of readjusted, because that's the great thing about the Good Feet store. It is a lifetime warranty. So I went in, and over the course of time with the inserts that I had, I just simply needed to get a reset, and it was no problem. Went into the store in Clearwater at 82nd and Dean, and Chris said, here, just stand here and let's imprint and check where your foot is. He said, yeah, you might need a little adjustment. Of course, it didn't cost anything because of a lifetime warranty from the very initial purchase from years earlier from the Good Feet store. But the Good Feet store arch support inserts are designed towards your foot to becoming pain-free for you. No more plantar fasciitis or things like that. Very simple process with no hassle, no obligation. You simply go in, get that scan of your foot, and get the inserts, interchangeable 3-pair, all-American-made product with a lifetime warranty to helping you become pain-free. I love my inserts. I'm confident you will love yours as well. 800-639-3338 is the telephone number. More simply, goodfeetindy.com.
Save now on appliances and more at the Truckload event at Lowe's. Get deals on select major appliances and take home what you buy same day. And save an additional 10% on all in-store clearance appliances. Plus, get 10% off in-stock kitchen cabinets with a $1,000 minimum purchase and save even more on clearance cabinets in-store. Shop the Truckload event in-store or online today. Must ask cashier to apply discount at time of purchase. Exclusions apply while supplies last. Selection varies by location. See Lowe's.com for details. Valid 1/19 to 1/25.
Bundling and saving with Geico is an easy choice, so you're free to ponder life's big questions, like, what's the best animal in the world if not humans? I'd strongly consider ducks to be somewhere up there on the list. Think about it. Ducks can swim, ducks can fly, and ducks can walk on land. They have access to all terrains. They are the ultimate animal. And they wiggle their butts when they walk, which is funny. Yeah, ducks are awesome. End of story. Bundling and saving with Geico. It's an easy choice.
Protect your engine against sludge and wear with a synthetic oil change. O'Reilly Auto Parts has 5 quarts of Mobil 1 full synthetic motor oil for $35.95. Plus, get 2 times O Rewards points. Our professional parts people can recommend the supplies you need, including a filter, funnel, shop towels, drain pans, and more. Stop by O'Reilly Auto Parts or visit O'ReillyAuto.com.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Camp Lejeune Justice is responsible for the content of this ad. Attention Marines, military, contractors, and family members stationed at Camp Lejeune for 30 days or longer between August 1953 and December of 1987. For 34 years, those at Camp Lejeune were exposed to contaminated drinking water, resulting in devastating injuries. Passage of the Camp Lejeune Justice Act of 2022 would allow victims to seek compensation for illnesses and injuries linked to the toxic water.
For a free consultation, call 800-210-0859. That's 800-210-0859.
In St. Pete, Clearwater, Florida, every day is a great escape. With 35 miles of white sand, there's no better place to get away. So let's explore the secluded beaches of Fort DeSoto or paddle our way around Honeymoon Island. Let's kick back, kayak, and catch crimson sunsets. Let's trade snow boots for bathing suits. Let's make today and tomorrow a beach day. Let's shine. Plan your escape at visitstpeteclearwater.com.
Hey, it's JMV. Sometimes you're just cruising through life and, well, something happens that's just not your fault. You're in an accident and it causes injuries to both you and your family. And those medical bills can sure add up quickly. That's where Paul Cruz at Paul Ritchie Law Firm can help. Paul is recognized by the Super Lawyers Organization and his peers as one of the top personal injury attorneys in Indiana. Make that free call to see if Paul can help you at 317-269-2509. Visit PARRinjury.com. Hey, JMV here for the absolute best in plumbing. That's Lance and his local team at L.D. Smith Plumbing. The only plumber in Indy to call. They're your hero because Lance and his local team will take care of you. Any plumbing issue and especially plumbing emergencies. Clogged drains, leaky faucets, water heaters. They do it all. The absolute best and especially with your plumbing emergencies. Lance and his local team with L.D. Smith Plumbing. Check them out online today, ldsmithplumbing.com.
You're listening to Kevin and Query on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Hi, good morning to you on a Tuesday morning. Actually, looks like a decent start outside. At least it's dry in comparison to yesterday. My name is Jake Query. Kevin Bowen here as well. It is Kevin and Query. 93.5, 107.5. The Fan. Pacers returning back home tonight trying to get on the right side of things after what has been obviously an ugly stretch. No Tyrese Haliburton, but a 7-game skid. Chicago, the opponent. But the other thing, I guess, Kevin, when you look at the Pacers season right now, in addition to simply looking at X's and O's, W's and L's, you're also looking at roster, and Myles Turner comes in to play big time.
Yeah, and again, February 9th, the trade deadline, so that is 2 weeks from Thursday. It's been reported now, I think, for several weeks that the Pacers and Myles Turner have begun contract extension negotiations. I think the most recent report is the Turner camp turned down the Pacers' offer. Again, Myles has changed agents here lately. He's never been a free agent in the NBA, but that could happen this offseason. Jake, I think we have to look a little bit big picture if the Pacers do extend Turner and what that does to this rebuild. If you're going to extend Turner, the pros and cons of it. The pros of it, you continue to have one of the top rim protectors in the NBA. Your defense, which honestly struggles at times when Turner's on the floor, wouldn't be kind of in this laughing stock of the league. You would stabilize a position that I would say one of the few disappointing aspects to this Pacers season has been the development of Isaiah Jackson, Jalen Smith, and Goga, if you want to throw Goga into that group. You haven't gotten a lot out of those backup young guys that you're like, oh yeah, that's Andrew Nembhard promise, or
right.
Someone that has shown a little, Aaron Nesmith, someone that's shown a little bit more in a guard or a wing. So I think those are the pros. The cons of it, you're paying Turner a very, very high bill at a position that championship teams just don't value at all. Turner would be the highest paid player on the team. That wouldn't last very long. Haliburton will eclipse him when he gets his extension. But Turner would be the second highest paid player, Jake, for the Pacers, and that would likely be the case for several years. I looked up last night these names, and I'll first name them for you and then explain. Klay Thompson, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Anthony Davis, Kawhi Leonard, Kevin Durant.
Okay.
Probably 5 Hall of Famers, probably 5 first ballot, if that's such a thing in the NBA. Jake, those are the second highest paid players in the last 5 championship teams. Don't think Myles Turner falls into that category. I think the Pacers' goal in a rebuild, when you haven't done it in 3 decades, should be to swing for the fences. And using that money that you'd give to Turner and having flexibility to take on trades, i.e. Buddy Hield's contract, what we saw them do last February, and just being a little bit more of a, we can pivot and we can be able to involve ourselves in other talks around the league to acquire a wing, which to me, a wing is more important than acquiring a big. I think it's proven in this league, and you see it, like Nick Claxton, he's a leading shot blocker in the NBA. It's not like he was, spent a high draft pick. Brooklyn did not spend a high draft pick on him. Walker Kessler's had a really nice rookie season. That was not some lottery pick either. That's the path that I would take in moving forward at the center position, because I think if you can hit on a wing and kind of patchwork center, that is your best chance to trying to get this franchise back to the Paul George, David West era where you were making multiple Eastern Conference Finals runs, as opposed to what we saw in the Oladipo era where it was kind of the 4 or 5 seed as a ceiling.
When we talked about the Colts, I had said that my concern about the Colts was that their best players, Shaquille Leonard, Jonathan Taylor, Quentin Nelson, that they were in positions, or that they had put their best players in the positions that were of the least relevance in a transitioning away from that style in the NFL, and that it was the equivalent of having Anthony Mason, Sam Cassell, and like Patrick Ewing as your 3 best NBA players today. So therefore, it would be probably inconsistent of me to champion the cause of re-signing Myles Turner, because to your point, the center position is devalued. It is probably the guard or running back position in the NFL today. Except Kevin Pritchard had a very definitive intrigue and idea and envisioned game plan about the way this Pacers team was built that was predicated on how Myles Turner would respond to the interior passing, the lob passing, and the pacing set by Tyrese Haliburton. And they wanted to see, and Kevin Pritchard more than anything else wanted to see, how is Myles going to shoot the ball this year? Now that Sabonis is gone, what's going to happen with Myles Turner in terms of his shooting? When Domas Sabonis, who's a wonderful talent, was here, the Pacers charted very specifically what happened in terms of number of people that touched the ball in half-court sets when Sabonis was on the floor versus when Turner was on the floor. And what they established was, or determined was, that when Turner was on the floor, the ball movement was much more fluid. And in that capacity, that Turner, even though he was a center defensively, that offensively he was more of like a wing. And so they basically said, if we were to move Sabonis to open things up on our half-court offensive sets, then what are we going to get out of him defensively? And he has responded in the fact that I think his rim protection and his facilitation towards pacing the opposite direction has been probably better than it's been in a long time. So he has responded, I think, very well and is a very important piece towards Haliburton, all those, Nembhard, Nesmith. The other thing that Turner does that I think is really important, Kevin, defensively speaking, you still are a team, and to your point, which is a good one, to your point, this maybe becomes a little bit nullified if you were able to get yourself an additional wing defender. But for right now, you have Aaron Nesmith, who is growing and developing as a wing on the defensive side of the ball and looks to be a good wing defender, but still has room to grow. And then you have like Nembhard or Mathurin that have a lot of growth to do defensively in the backcourt. Not saying that they're not good defenders, but they're not the full length size of like a Paul George defender. So if you have guys that have the potential to be beaten on the wings, then it becomes even more important to have that final rim protection. In other words, what I'm getting at long-winded and circuitously here is Myles Turner to me is in a unique situation because his value to the Indiana Pacers is likely higher than his value elsewhere in the league. And I think that other teams are going to look at the style of play and the way that Indiana's built, and they're going to say, look, Myles Turner's a good player for Indiana, and he could be a good player for us, but we ain't going to pay him what Indiana's going to pay him. So I think in the end he ends up staying here, quite frankly.
You think he signs an extension in the next 2 weeks?
I do. And I am in agreement with you that if he does not,
you have to.
Let me rephrase that, Kevin. I don't know whether he will sign it here or not. And I have all the respect in the world for guys. Myles Turner's a native of the Dallas area. If Myles Turner gets an opportunity to go play for the Mavericks or even the Rockets or the Spurs and he wants to be close to home,
sure. I mean, the Pacers just offered DeAndre Ayton the max. I mean, Myles Turner has earned the right to experience free agency.
Totally. So my point being, do I think he's going to re-sign here? I actually am not qualified to answer that because I don't know his thinking there or what he's going to get offered. But I do think that, yes, Indiana will prioritize signing him over trying to then trade him.
And again, this is a moot point, Jake, if he doesn't sign that extension because, as I've said all along, then you have to trade him.
I would agree with that. Obviously, you've got to get something at that point.
I just would have hesitancy. And again, I can fully acknowledge I think Turner is a very important piece to what the Pacers have right now. I just don't like paying centers that have had some injury history into their 30s, the amount of money that you would spend on Myles Turner, the amount of money that is, in a similar way to what Durant and Kawhi and Anthony Davis and Klay Thompson have gotten on these championship teams in recent years. I get that part of that is just how the cap goes up, and guys that have been in the league for as long as Turner have some merit to this contract. But I look at center as one of the more easily replaceable positions. Are you going to be able to find a center that blocks shots at the level he does and shoots 40% from three or whatever his percentage is? No. But can you make up for it in other areas? Because I think you have to remind yourself, if you give Turner this money and then you extend Haliburton, you're pretty much done from a cap space standpoint. And I know when people hear cap space, they think free agency. But the reason why you were able to pull off the Haliburton, Buddy Hield, Sabonis, Justin Holiday trade was because you were in a great cap situation as well. So if you're going to commit to Turner, I just think we need to remind ourselves, you've pretty much committed to this current core. Maybe you hit on a late lottery pick coming up in 2023, but that's really it for what you have from a core standpoint. So are you betting on this group right now to be your championship group for the next 5 years? I'm not willing to bet on that.
Realistically on this show, you're Haliburton and I'm Myles Turner. You're the young, upstart, multi-talented guy, and I'm the veteran that 50% of our audience tolerates and the other 50% is stunned I'm still here. Right? Isn't that right?
We can debate those percentages during the break, maybe.
Joel Erickson joins us next.
There's no beginning.
Let's start something special right here, man. Let's go.
And no end.
Look, you got to get your team ready to play.
It is a constant.
Get a rhythm going.
Through every season.
Come back again.
It is always Colts season. Firing, hiring, free agency, the combine, the schedule, the draft, OTAs, minicamp, training camp, kickoff, the offseason. Questions is a season to be answered for this Colts team. The best Colts coverage is on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Jackson Hewitt guarantees your biggest tax refund, plus a chance to double your refund with the Double Your Refund sweepstakes. No purchase necessary. U.S. residents 18 or older who file a 2022 federal return ends 4/2/23.
Need new tires? Skip the long appointments and bad coffee. With Go Mobile Tires Indy, order tires online and have them installed at your home or office. GoMobileIndy.com. We come to you.
The break happens. Jake discredits another weather report. Pretty much par for the course here on this Tuesday morning. Speaking of weather, something to do here the next few days as the temperatures continue to decrease. Go over to your windows. Put your hand on the inside of that window. The temperature that you feel on the inside should be that of what the temperature is in your home, not the temperature that is outdoors. If you don't feel that, you need to make a call to Window Nation. Home show season. Window Nation is bringing the home show savings to you. You can get 0% financing for 60 months. That's 5 years, no interest, plus 2 free windows with every 2 you buy. And all of this is without leaving the comfort of your home. Go to windownation.com/home show and try their free virtual visualizer. Just upload a picture of your home and view hundreds of window options. Call 866-90-NATION or go online at windownation.com/home show. Again, home show savings happen here in January, into February as well. You can get 0% financing for 60 months, plus 2 free windows with every 2 you buy. So call 866-90-NATION or go online at windownation.com/home show.
Indy's #1 for new country.
I got some famous friends.
Nobody plays more new country. 97.1 Hank FM.
Why does We Grow Hair Indy have the best hair transplant results? Because they have the best technology. And I'm living proof of it. Hey, this is JMV. We Grow Hair Indy has the technology that restored both my bald spot in my crown area and PRP to keep my hairline and non-transplanted hair looking good. This year, they can restore your bald spot and your hairline. Call 317-522-2995. 317-522-2995. Here's Darren Andrews to explain.
Having that strong hairline again completely changes the way you see yourself. It makes a huge difference. A lot of people think the crown cannot be transplanted. It's actually an area of specialty for us with our multi-unit hair grafting.
My hair is going to grow the rest of my life, and that's exactly what I want. Call 317-522-2995 to schedule your free evaluation. That's 317-522-2995, and check out my results at WeGrowHairIndy.com, the gold standard in hair restoration.
With PatriotSoftware.com, accounting and payroll, keep your time and money.
Mike Capel here, serial entrepreneur. I started my first business in the basement of a factory over 30 years ago. We had no heat and no air conditioning. Instead of customers, our office visitors were rats, birds, flies, and snakes. Our office flooded often, and we used blankets as our office walls. We were broke and needed help. That's why I created Patriot Software, to help small business owners with simple payroll for 1 to 100 employees. And if you need help, we will help you for free. Go to PatriotSoftware.com. Use promo code RADIO and get 2 months of payroll processing free. That's PatriotSoftware.com.
with PatriotSoftware.com. Accounting and payroll, keep your time and money.
Get in the zone, AutoZone.
Welcome to AutoZone. What are you working on today? Starting trouble. No one likes that. We'll get you set up for some stronger starts. You might just need a fresh charge, and we'll take care of that free of charge. But if it is time for a new battery, we've got replacement batteries that'll fit your needs, starting at just $79.99. You can learn more about our battery selection at AutoZone.com. That's what makes us America's #1 battery destination.
Get in the zone, AutoZone.
Claim based on data from the NPD Group 2021.
Shop limited time deals at the Truckload event at Lowe's, happening now. Save big on your favorites across the store. During this event, get up to 50% off select tools and accessories. Plus, find the perfect floor tile for your home for less. Get up to 50% off select styles while you can. Head to your local Lowe's store or visit Lowes.com to shop the Truckload event today. Valid 12/29 through 1/25 while supplies last. Selection varies by location. See Lowes.com for details. Discount taken at time of purchase.
93.5 and 107.5, The Fan.
WIBC HD2, W298BB, WIBC HD3, W228CX, Indianapolis. The Pacers return to the Fieldhouse to face the Chicago Bulls this evening at 6:30 on 93.5 and 107.5, The Fan.
It's Kevin and Query on 93.5 and 107.5, The Fan.
Seeing that Myles Turner conversation coming up when Tony East joins us around 9 o'clock. The latest on the Colts head coaching search, pretty quiet start to the week. I think that's kind of the expectation, unless the Colts want to go with second interviews from guys that are out of the playoffs. Tom Pelissero earlier today mentioned this report for Dan Quinn. The Cardinals are flying in Dan Quinn tonight for a second interview for their head coaching job. Quinn also is a top candidate for the Broncos and the Colts, who want to bring him in later this week. So, Jake, I think that is something to keep in mind. Do you see coveted candidates? And I think Quinn, D'Amico Ryans, Sean Payton, those would qualify as that. They can kind of control some of this. And if they start to be a finalist in a certain area or with a certain franchise, do we see other teams panic a little bit and start to get some dominoes to fall? So that'll be something to keep an eye on. To talk more about the Colts head coaching search, Joel A. Erickson joins us here from the Indianapolis Star. Joel, good morning.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
It's going great. Good luck with your kids in the snow tomorrow. Are we rooting for a snow day in the Erickson household or no?
We need no full snow day. They can be delayed. We don't need the full snow day we don't want the flex day to get taken up for HSE schools.
Forgot about the old flex day. Where do they slot that? Like in the springtime somewhere?
No, it's like right in February. Which if the Colts get their coaching search done by the middle of February, I'd actually have time off.
Oh, this thing's going into July, man. I mean. I know it's Indy 500 week, but later today, the Colts are announcing their final two. Be sure to call in 800-999 if you want Jeff Saturday. I mean, that's what it feels like to me, Joel. I'm becoming more and more cynical by the day.
Joel, are you surprised by how things have unfolded here 2 weeks in, whether it's the amount of names? I think Chris Ballard kind of warned us patience would be preached. And I mentioned this earlier. He interviewed 5 candidates in 2018 and hired Josh McDaniels. If he was interviewing 5 candidates right now and made a hire, I think people would be absolutely ripping him for doing the same thing he did in 2018.
Yeah, I think so too. I think what's about Ballard telegraphed all this to us. I think he said it's going to be a wide-ranging search. Doesn't matter offense or defense. He said the thing about I don't care if this goes till mid-February. We're going to be patient. We're going to take our time. We're going to get it right. So from what he told us in his press conference, it's gone pretty much that way so far.
Joel, I'm going to give you multiple choice here, okay? I'll try to make it as concise as possible. A, Chris Ballard is publicly doing a vast search because he wants to do everything he can to prohibit Jim Irsay from hiring Jeff Saturday. B, Chris Ballard is doing an exhaustive long-form search because he knows Jeff Saturday is going to be hired and he wants to at least make the appearance that they did a long search? C, none of the above.
So on B, I keep seeing that floated as a possibility. If you tweet out an interview or whatever, fans will say, they're just doing this to cover their tracks for when they hire Saturday. I don't think that would actually work. If that's what if that is in fact what they're trying to do, I don't think it would work. I think that the reaction, regardless, it would almost make it worse, maybe. In terms of the reaction, with people saying, hey, you brought all these guys in for interviews, and then you gave them sham interviews to hire the guy you were going to hire in the first place. I don't think that would work at all, actually. So A seems like the most likely version to me, because I think Chris is smart enough to understand how that would be perceived. Now, obviously, they could still go with him, but I don't think them interviewing a bunch of people is going to help the reaction in any way, shape, or form, either nationally or locally, if they hire Jeff Saturday.
Do you think it's unusual, though, that and I get it, and I can appreciate the transparency because they've taken the meat out of the hands of the speculative. My sources tell me this person's being interviewed and whatever else. So they're being transparent. Kudos to them for that. I guess we should appreciate that from a media perspective. However, do you find it unusual that Chris Ballard would go through this entire process to then just hand over and let Jim Irsay make the pick?
No, I mean, ultimately, technically, the owner is going to make the pick anyway because it's one of the three. Irsay has said before he thinks it's his top. His job is to handle the top three positions, the three pillars, the coach, quarterback, and GM. It is probably a little bit. Usually, when you make that decision, though, and you hand it over, the GM is expecting that his pick is going to get greenlit. So that I think is the most interesting piece of this to me is this going to go the way it would go in most NFL cities where the GM's pick is probably going to get greenlit, or is it going to go the way we've wondered if it's going to go, where it's Ballard does a lot of work and recommends somebody and then Irsay hires who he wants to hire?
He's Joel Erickson for the Indianapolis Star. He's with us here on the Payless Liquors hotline. How about this from Brian here? Jake, I recently found out that Joel's wife is my son's kindergarten teacher. She's good people.
Oh, okay. That's cool.
Mrs. Erickson running a great classroom there in the HSC school district. So
there we go. I like that.
Yeah,
I like that.
Shout out there. Thank you for sharing that, Brian. If she's anything like her husband, I can only assume she is good people. This might sound like a ludicrous statement to make, but it's Jim Irsay, so I don't think it's that ludicrous, Joel. Do you think Jim Irsay is paying attention to social media and sees the venom towards Jeff Saturday?
I thought that he was paying attention towards social media during the season. I felt like some of the stuff that he was saying was directed.
Yeah, that tweet after the Raiders game.
Yeah, was directed directly at social media. And I mean, he never referenced like Twitter or anything like that. But like you said, the tweet after the Raiders game, some of the stuff he said in the press conference felt like it was direct responses to stuff I've been seeing on social media. And if he is paying attention to it, I think, like you said, you have to know that the fan base would not be excited about that. One of the Colts, there's lots of Colts fans who have pretty big Twitter followings, and one of them is V.V. Jones, the guy named Kennan, who's a pretty good dude, and he tweeted a poll last weekend, and it was basically who do you want as a Colts fan as coach, Jeff Saturday or anybody else? I think it was like 92-8 against, 92% to 8% against, and I feel like that. If you look at like when they tweeted out the interview and all the replies to it, I think it would be surprising to me if they didn't know how the fans feel about it at this point, because the replies to that tweet was like 25. It felt like 25-1 against making that hire. So I do think that they probably have to know something about the way the fan base is feeling, at least the way we're seeing it play out on social media.
Joel, I think we asked you this a couple weeks ago, and again, Joel Erickson is with us from the Indianapolis Star, and now that it's played out that Sean Payton has interviewed with 4 of the 5 teams that have an opening, he has not interviewed with Indianapolis. Is that Sean Payton balking at the Colts, considering his public comments about stability and ownership in front office, or do you think it's the Colts having hesitation about giving up whatever draft pick they would need to for Sean Payton?
So I've poked around on this. Obviously, I used to cover the Saints in New Orleans. I poked around on this, and it's kind of hard to pin down. Payton, the ownership thing with Payton is that's not lip service. He really does mean that, and he has it has influenced his decisions in the past with what he thinks about the ownership group. So I definitely think that there's weight behind the words of what he said. And then obviously the other thing he said was when he went on the Colin Cowherd thing, he thought it would be a mid to late round first round pick. The Colts, obviously, their pick is the 4th pick in the draft. I don't know that there's, maybe any coach that I would trade a pick that I could get a franchise quarterback for. And I think the Saints do want to get at least a first round pick out of this. So I could be either one, and I've never been able to pin down exactly quite which one it is, or if it's a combination of both. It could be a combination of both things as they went through the initial process. Payton could have told the Saints, "Hey, hold them up for a ransom," and then they did, and the Colts were like, "I don't want to pay that." So, but it is interesting because it is 4 of the 5, and my friend Nick Underhill, who's the guy on the Saints beat, reported that all 5 teams inquired. So the Colts definitely inquired, and it just never went beyond that, which is interesting.
Joel, do you believe that there's the possibility that of the openings in the NFL, that the Indianapolis Colts are lower on a coach who has some flexibility of where he goes? That, in other words, if a coach is looking at multiple options, you're Dan Quinn, you've got Arizona, you got Denver, you got Indianapolis. Do you think there's the possibility that Indianapolis slots lower because of unreasonable expectation from the owner as to how close the franchise is to being competitive?
I think that's definitely possible. I mean, it's definitely possible, and I think there's some other things, the other factors that could push those other jobs up. I mean, Denver, you have a quarterback who played terribly last year, but it's also a quarterback who's been a top 8 quarterback before in the league. Plus, they have very, very deep-pocketed owners who are willing to do just about whatever it takes in their new ownership. Arizona's got a quarterback. Houston has a ton of draft capital. And Carolina also has incredibly deep pockets in the ownership group. And so I do think that based on what we know, depending on, we haven't had any reports about what the Colts are offering their head coach. Obviously, Frank Reich, based on what we know of what he was getting paid, they have the ability to pay a head coach a significant contract. But yeah, I do think that there are reasons that it looks like that you would maybe put them as 5th or 4th on the list, and probably 5th. Although Carolina's quarterback situation would scare me, but it hasn't seemed to scare off coaching candidates.
Again, he's Joel Erickson from the Indianapolis Star. Not only does he cover the Colts, but he's married to an extremely impressive kindergarten teacher in the HSC school district. We learned that from Brian this morning, so thank you for sharing that. Again, Joel is with us here on the Payless Liquors Hotline. All right, Joel, 13 candidates. I want to say 6 offense, 5 defense. Throw Jeff Saturday, I guess, on offense maybe. Bubba Ventrone, Rich Bisaccia, the 2 special teams coordinators. Give me an offensive candidate and a defensive candidate that stands out for you.
Quinn, and I'm going to give you 2 defensive candidates right off the bat. Quinn and Raheem Morris stand out to me because they're the ones who've got experience in the role.
The only candidates that have coaching experience.
Who have the full off-season coaching experience in the role. And that's interesting because sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes you end up Dan Quinn got undone a little bit in Atlanta because they could never quite get the defensive talent he needed. I feel like the Colts' defensive talent is in a pretty good place. But I obviously he's very highly respected. I mean, I think before he even interviewed with Denver, people were like, that might be the guy if they don't get Payton. Raheem Morris has been in the McVay system now for a while, which means he has access to all of those offensive coordinators and coaches that run that system that makes life easy on quarterbacks, and is probably a good thing for a rookie to play in. And then on offense, Shane Steichen is interesting to me because he's a little bit of a continuation for this franchise because he comes from Frank Reich's coaching tree, obviously, both having coached with Frank and now coaching with Nick Sirianni. And then the other one that's interesting, and you don't know a ton about him, is just Brian Callahan's story is interesting to me. I was just looking him up in Cincinnati. Like, he's got the famous dad who's one of the great offensive line coaches of all time, and he's on record as saying he never wanted to use that, and so he's never worked with his dad, which is just interesting. Just interesting in a business where there's lots of father-son coaching combos, and usually their paths cross at one point or the other, especially early in the younger one's coaching career. And it's never happened for him. That's interesting to me. Plus, obviously, the work with Burrow, which we've all seen how good Burrow is.
Yeah, and Burrow is pretty darn good coming out of college. I mean, I'm not taking anything away from him, right?
Yeah, you're right. No, you're fair.
I mean, fair. You know that. Let me read you something. Joel Erickson is our guest, Indianapolis Stars, where you can read his work. He's on the Payless Liquors hotline. To be fair to Jeff Saturday, I guess to provide both sides of the coin, I want to read you something, Joel, and I want you to respond to it. But this was just sent to me by James. As a Colts fan, I want Jeff Saturday to have a full season with an experienced play caller. He wasn't afraid to call out the offensive line for not protecting their quarterback. I don't really care who media or others think should be the coach. He should be given a fair shake. Is that a fair statement?
My thing has always been that he did get a fair shake, and it's not from me or the media saying it. It's from him saying it and from the owner saying it. And Jim Irsay said, again, it's a good reminder. When he had the opening press conference, we saw them going down, and we had to do something to stop it. And that was one of the reasons given for hiring Jeff Saturday. Saturday said over and over again, I'm being judged on W's and L's here. That's all I care about. Every decision he made, he said, was about wins. And so it's not us. I don't think it's us in the media focusing unduly on his record. It's us holding them to the standard that they set for themselves.
And Joel Erickson is with us here from the Indianapolis Star. Joel, I think one thing that Jim Irsay and Chris Ballard do align on in this search is wanting the type of personality that Jeff Saturday has, and a little bit more, it doesn't have to be crazy fire and brimstone, but just a little bit more of that than maybe Frank Reich was offering. And I know that has to come off as sounding like a shot at Frank Reich. It's typically just how people operate with hires. You typically hire the 180 from the previous guy. I mean, the Pacers certainly followed that script in going from Nate McMillan to Nate Bjorkgren to Rick Carlisle. So I assume the Colts would do the same thing. Given a little bit more, public accountability, fire and brimstone, however you want to call it, which candidates from what you know would kind of fit that script?
So DeMeco Ryans, I know when they were asking him about his evolution as a coach, they were kind of the writers in San Francisco were kind of asking him questions about like him having to learn to soften up a little bit because he's a former linebacker. His tendency is to be intense. So he's one that I think would fall into that category. He's the one that sticks out. That's the one that I've looked at 13 of these guys, and so some of it's running together.
Sure.
But that was the one that sticks out as like somebody who kind of had that reputation. I think there's a few more of them. I think the biggest thing though is, and this may have been one of the things that hurt Reich was if you're not the fire and brimstone guy, you have to make sure you have to have those guys on the staff in in the right spots. And I don't necessarily know if they quite replaced Sirianni was that guy.
Right. Marcus Brady and Frank Reich were too similar, in my opinion, in that regard.
And so even if you're not hiring that guy, it's got to be part of the staff consideration of, do you have somebody else who's going to bring that if you're bringing more of the positive energy type of coach.
Joel, last one from me. Do you think Chris Ballard and or Jim Irsay put any stock in last year? 6 of the 8 final coaches came from offensive backgrounds. Of the final 4 teams last year, all 4 offensive background coach. This year, 7 of the 8 final teams offensive background. And again, all 4 left in the playoffs come from offensive backgrounds. Do you think Ballard and or Irsay put much stock into that?
Yeah, that's a good question. Obviously, the search hasn't gone. It's not like Carolina where they have their interim coach and then everybody else is an offensive guy. But it's a good question because all Ballard said was that he was open to offensive or defensive sides of the ball. But given that we're expecting them to draft a rookie quarterback, given what the head coach can add, even if he's not calling the plays, like Nick Sirianni's not calling the plays in Philadelphia, but I think obviously him and Steichen are working pretty heavily together on the game plan. It's something that has to be taken into consideration. It's just the way the NFL has been trending. Like you said, it's supposed to be a results-based business. In the last couple of years, the results say that offensive-based coaches have a better chance of getting further. But I mean, I would guess. My guess would be just talking to Chris Ballard in the past that he would feel like a defensive background doesn't preclude you as long as you're going to hire the right kind of staff. That's actually one of the reasons that Raheem Morris is interesting to me too, is because he's kind of both, which is a different which is a different background. Obviously, primarily defense, but spent 4 years, I think, as a wide receivers coach in Atlanta.
Joel,
under Dan Quinn,
this year, and I've made this reference several times on this program, but this past year when I was calling the Indy 500, Marcus Ericsson was a name that didn't have a lot of clout and cachet before winning the Indy 500. But when I went back and looked at the race and looked at my little flip chart that I do when I write down the top 8 on restarts and stuff when I'm calling the turns, I thought to myself, when he was the driver that was in the top 8 the entire race. Other guys, he wasn't in the lead the whole time, but he was just there the entire time. And then he ends up winning the race. Give me the one coach that, as you have been covering this coaching search, it doesn't necessarily mean that he's the guy you think may end up with the job or that you would put your money on, but you keep going back to him, and he keeps getting mentioned, and he keeps seemingly surfacing as one that you can't overlook. It would be who?
I think Morris falls into that category. The head coaching experience when he was really young. There's been a push both publicly and privately on his candidacy from Sean McVay. The experience on both sides of the ball. McVay saying a lot of stuff about how Raheem Morris has been an advisor to him. Like in terms of, markers that you're talking about that might slip through, I think that's the kind of stuff that maybe people don't look at as much. But in terms of getting prepared and doing all that stuff, that's kind of what feels like that to me. Is like he's spent a long time now in a lot of different systems, rebuilding his resume after what happened in Tampa, and then on top of that, he actually has the experience of having been in Tampa as a head coach on his own too. So I think he's probably the one that feels like that.
He is team 2 hour delay tomorrow morning. He is Joel Erickson from the Indianapolis Star. Joel, I think you're going to get your wish. I don't know. I feel like sometimes when you get out into the HSC school district, my mom actually used to teach in that school district. I feel like they cited a little bit more flat out snow day than just the 2 hour delay.
Yeah, I don't know if I have a good feel for it over the last couple of years. I feel like
I don't think we've had any this year, have we?
No, there hasn't really been anything that would warrant it, and it's hard to remember. I know the people making the call, and they do a good job. I have to give a shout out to our road crew too, because my brother's on the road crew here at Fishers. So they do a good job out here with the roads. But I don't know if I have a good idea of which way it goes in terms of.
Sounds like your brother's got some control. If he just oversleeps, and then all of a sudden roads don't get plowed, and we're going snow day.
Maybe. He's pretty big on the clearing though. He likes to have his section be as good as it can be.
Sure. Well, it'll be something to watch, of course, tomorrow morning. Joel, thanks for the time, man.
Yeah, you bet. Oh, his other advice is don't drive around snowplows. That's a bad idea.
Yeah, let them control the roadways
that would
tomorrow.
Be an awesome gig.
Follow them.
I would
you,
love to do that. Drive a snowplow would be an awesome gig. By the way,
I'm always confused when they're driving and the plow isn't all the way down.
Yeah, or just like the scraping noise while they're just kind of yesterday, Mark Dykton deviated from our typical "give us 5 words to explain a Colts game" tweet and shifted it to "give us the words to explain the Colts coaching search." We will get into that coming up in about 10 or 15 minutes. But before that, it is time for a morning checkdown, including news of one coach making a move back to familiar territory in the NFL.
The Morning Checkdown, brought to you by Ball State Basketball. Get your tickets at ballstatesports.com on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Begin on the Tyrese Haliburton front. It's approaching now 2 weeks for his absence. Sounds like it's more left elbow related than left knee. Was on the court yesterday at practice. The reevaluation date for him was supposed to be this Thursday, January 26th. Haliburton has mentioned that a little bit more end of the month. So it sounds like his absence will continue as the Pacers are back in action. Tonight, Chicago. Tomorrow in Orlando, a back-to-back. Here was Rick Carlisle yesterday on the Haliburton update.
Tyrese was here and he participated in parts of practice. He's getting a little better all the time. Don't have a timetable, but he actually participated in a little bit of the non-contact stuff full court, which was great to see. And any little thing that can be uplifting is important.
Again, Pacers at the Fieldhouse tonight taking on Chicago. In the NFL, Bill O'Brien returning to New England. He will be the offensive coordinator for the Patriots. That news coming out earlier this morning. That means that O'Brien reconnects with Mac Jones, right?
Yes, their Alabama days, of course, on that front. On the Colts head coaching front, you're seeing a couple of names get second interviews. We can go over this when we come back from the break, just to go over kind of the rules of where we're at right now. But Dan Quinn heading to Arizona for a second interview. Mike Kafka, the Giants OC, heading to Houston for a second interview. Both of those names on the Colts list. Again, those teams are out of the playoffs, Cowboys, Giants, respectively. So those coaches can do that. If the Colts want to talk to any of these coaches here in the Final Four, they've got to wait until Monday to have another chat, or in D'Amico Ryan's case, have a first conversation with him. So just some stuff to keep in mind on the Colts coaching front. Jake Purdue back to number 1 in both the AP and the coaches poll. And they're the only Big Ten team, right, in either poll?
That is correct. Indiana is second in the receiving votes. Technically, I guess that puts them at 27th. Rutgers is just behind them. Indiana with 61 votes, Rutgers at 31. But Purdue, the number 1 team in the land, followed by Alabama, Houston, Tennessee, and Kansas State. That's in the AP poll. Taking a look at the coaches poll, it is exactly the same. Kansas, who was 9th, losing last night to Baylor, who was 17th. So one would think the Jayhawks' 3-game skid will drop them even further. Kevin, give me a number 1 through 25.
Let's go with 18.
Number 18, that is, you got kind of the fun team, College of Charleston.
Oh, yeah, Pat Kelsey. I think there's some interest from Notre Dame.
Mark? 13. Number 13 for Mark Dykton. Mark has Xavier, which continues to be a solid road win for Indiana. That's in the AP poll. In the coaches poll, it is Tyrese Haliburton's Iowa State Cyclones. Finally, Mark, give me a number for me.
8. No,
11.
11.
The number 11 team in the land is Texas Christian, who blew out Kansas over the weekend, vaulting them just outside the top 10.
Trace Jackson-Davis, Big Ten Player of the Week. Indiana back in action at Minnesota. It's a 9 o'clock tip tomorrow night. Purdue is also in the 9 o'clock slot. That is on Thursday night. They go to Ann Arbor to try and continue their undefeated mark in the Big Ten. And this from Jason, which now I feel like an idiot because it makes total sense after he says this. If the plow is all the way down, it does not allow for the blade to shift with the road. The plow would take chunks out of the road when it meets an uneven surface.
Okay.
And Jake, we have several uneven surfaces, I would say, around the inside and outside of 465. So thank you, Jason, for that. And, of course, thinking about everybody from a plowing, salting standpoint. I know it's a lot of long hours here in the next 24, 48 hours, so appreciate all the help on that.
Just lock it into 93.5, 107.5 and rip off the knob. Drive that bad boy all around town.
I love that. Tony East going to talk a little Pacers coming up at the 9 o'clock hour. We'll update you on the Colts head coaching search here between now and then. Kevin and Query, 93.5, 107.5, The Fan.
Hey, it's JMV, and maintain winter road readiness at your 14 Central Indiana CarX locations. Oil changes, tires, brakes, and more. 14 to serve you. That's CarX.com today.
Anyone who has ever needed self-storage knows what a hassle it can be. You have to rent or borrow a truck and then find someone to help you move your stuff. And let's face it, moving furniture and heavy items without damaging them isn't easy. Renting the unit is worse. The hidden fees and admin costs are scarier than the dingy facilities you're leaving your stuff in. Why not use Closet Box instead? Closet Box is self-storage without leaving home. They'll pick up your belongings, store them securely, and bring any item back when you need it. The best part? Unlike traditional self-storage, you only pay for what you store. No paying for unused storage space. Closet Box's background check storage movers are licensed, bonded, and insured and will take care of all of the heavy lifting. Closet Box's local storage centers are temperature controlled and monitored 24/7. Closet Box has an A+ rating from the BBB. Call 877-233-5696 now for the season's best rates. Get $50 off first month storage using code RADIO50. That's 877-233-5696. 877-233-5696.
Bowling, 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 keep them balls a-rolling. Bowling, bowling, bowling. Royal Pin.
The U.S. Open is returning to Royal Pin Woodland. Start the major PBA tournament off with Bowl with the Pros on January 29th, with 2 squad times available, 4 p.m. and 7 p.m. Bowlers of all ages are guaranteed to bowl with 6 of the PBA's top professionals competing in the U.S. Open. Don't stop there. Get your tickets to watch the bowlers compete for the major title and Green Jacket live on Fox. 2 shows available. Visit bowl.com/US Open to sign up to Bowl with the Pros and get your tickets to the live finals. Or call Woodland at 317-844-4099. That's 317-844-4099.
Royal Pin. Bowling, bowling. Royal Pin. Bowling. With PatriotSoftware.com. Accounting and payroll. Keep your time and money.
Mike Capel here, serial entrepreneur. Doing payroll is no longer a headache for our customer, Jeff.
I've used various payroll providers in the past, and none can hold a candle to Patriot Software. Their software is ridiculously easy to use. The support staff is knowledgeable and courteous. I am very excited that Patriot Software files my tax forms for me, not just providing the forms like other payroll companies do. As a business owner, managing payroll has been a long-time headache that I no longer struggle with thanks to Patriot Software. I definitely rate your company 5 out of 5 stars.
Go to PatriotSoftware.com to get your payroll pricing for up to 100 employees. Use promo code RADIO and get 2 months of payroll processing free. That's PatriotSoftware.com.
With PatriotSoftware.com. Accounting and payroll. Keep your time and money.
The Ride with JMV.
It seems like, man, all these young dudes, we got to wait around tonight. We got to go ahead and get some draft capital. I've been all too familiar over these recent years of losing, of sucking, of having to be negative day after day. I can't lie to you. Coming on here and throwing a lot of love at the blue and gold makes this guy sitting here 3 until 6 feel really good.
The Ride with JMV.
Weekdays 3 to 6.
On 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan. You're listening to Kevin and Query on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
After Colts games, on the Kevin and Query Twitter page, which is at Kevin and Query, I wonder if we openly lobby for followers right now, how many we can get by the end of the segment. At Kevin Enquiry, that's KevinAndQuery. At Kevin Enquiry.
Under promise, over deliver, or something like that. What's the old phrase?
You can mute us. Just hit the follow button.
Yeah,
right?
Boy. We could get humbled real quick after
I know.
looking at that follower count.
But here's the thing. On it, Mark Dykton had sent a tweet. Typically after games, we send out the tweet that says, tell us in, is it 4 or 5 words, Mark?
5 words or fewer.
So the way that we do it is tell us in that, summarize different aspects of Colts games and things like that. So we deviated because there's obviously no Colts game to talk about. He says, we're on air and rolling into Monday morning. This was obviously on Sunday to recap a busy sports weekend, including the head coaching search. But with no Colts game, please describe your thoughts on the head coaching search. And I figured we'd read some of the responses because there seems to be kind of a theme on these, right?
People are pissed how long it's taken.
And maybe some specific candidates that are
it doesn't
under
look like a lot of
consideration.
Jeff Saturday love. Luca, please pick anyone but Saturday.
I like this one from AJ. We all know what's coming.
Rob, random, indecisive, scattered.
Chris, Ballard proves he is clueless.
JP, waiting to be let down. And then Bill K said one big cluster blank. Jordan Shanks, upper quartile of coaching searches.
I always like a good quartile.
Will Haskett, am I up next? Yeah.
David Thrush, just don't mess it up.
This is, you might have read this one, Jeremy, more worried about quarterback. I think a lot of people feel that way.
Quarterback's more important than head coach. I mean, I know there's a level, they go hand in hand, but.
CVM says all this to hire Saturday.
Yeah. Like the Energizer Bunny, keeps going.
The vibe of all of these tweets makes me go back to this comment from Jim. And again, this is longer than 5 words. Jim was just tweeting at us a little bit earlier. Jim goes, a huge reason the coaching search is really wearing Colts fans out is because it began with half of us already fearing they might actually name Jeff Saturday head coach.
Yeah.
I think that's spot on.
This from Michael. Jake, Kevin, Mark, please apply.
My interview's later this week, I think.
I don't know if you guys read this one already, but I think a lot of people feel this way. Steve has this one. This is his 4 words to describe the Colts coaching search. Not real. Hiring Saturday.
Do you have any thoughts on that question I just asked Joel Erickson? Do you think Jim Irsay looks at that stuff? Do you think Jim Irsay cares?
I mean, he's got to be getting tagged in a lot of stuff.
Do you think the hashtag Chuck Stay had any influence on Chuck Pagano staying for that 2017 season?
I don't think he should look at it. I do think that he does. I think it's human nature to an extent.
Do you think he lets it influence him? Do you think it did with Chuck Pagano? Do you think it will with Jeff Saturday?
Yes. With Saturday, Kevin, I'm going to say this. I'm not. That sounded like I'm a parent to you. I'm going to say this again for the final time. I didn't mean it that way, but I have said this a lot, and I will say it again because I truly believe it. I don't blame Jim Irsay for it at all. We've talked a lot on this show, and I have a really good ability to turn a lot of things about me because, I love me some me. But,
sure.
But you've heard me mention, we've talked a lot about the fact that, take algebra. I absolutely plugged and plotted my way through that algebra class last semester, a 100-level college algebra class, the same algebra that people are taking right now in probably their junior year at Hamilton Southeastern. Because when I was in high school and college, I could never pass algebra. And even though I've lived a life where it turns out that not being able to pass algebra, fortunately, did not hold me back career-wise or from being able to make a living, I wanted to always make good on that thing that plagued me. I think we as humans have that's inherent in all of us, that there is something that drives us that we feel like we need to complete or make good on mistakes of our past. Jim Irsay has essentially held one job. I don't knock him for that at all. He's been around football his whole life. He's worked within the Colts organization since his teen years. But the one job that he held when he had a business card was general manager of the Indianapolis Colts. And he erred in that capacity. And in his eyes as a competitor, he probably feels that he fell short. And so therefore, I think that he is largely fueled by his algebra. And that is making good on the areas where he had fallen short. And that is personnel and team building of an NFL franchise. And I think this entire process partially is fueled by his desire to make good on that and complete himself by showing that something that plagued him in the past where he fell short, he now can say, I made good on that. And I think that the Jeff Saturday hire, for example, as the interim coach, was largely fueled by that, of going outside the box against the grain so that if it worked out, which I think he thought it was going to, and they went 5-2 or they went 4-4 and they got into the playoffs somehow, that people would say, that Jim Irsay thought outside the box and outsmarted everybody. And we could see it after the Raiders game when he sent the tweet like, where are the haters now? Or something along those lines. Because he really, I think, totally anticipated that his outside-the-box thinking would show a football acumen that was his version of getting a good grade in algebra. I truly believe that, and I think that still is present, and I think he checks in on what people think, and I don't blame him at all because it makes him human.
So this, you look at it as, I want to prove everybody wrong, or?
I want to prove myself right.
That's the opposite of the Chuck Pagano, though. The Chuck Pagano was he listened to the fan base and he kept Chuck. So this would be the 180 of that?
Yeah, I think that there has been...
This would be going against the grain of his fan base.
Yeah, I think that if you were to talk to people that are close to Jim Irsay or around the franchise, they would tell you that Jim Irsay today is a different person than he was 5 years ago. And that there's a little bit of, I think, concern amongst people. He's a very, very good person. I don't mean that. But I think there is some concern amongst people that he is becoming too focused, laser focused on his own impact on the franchise.
Yeah, I've mentioned before the Daniel Snyder stuff and how Irsay was beloved by really the entire NFL world there for a couple of days. I thought it just got really power trippy for him. October into November, I think you saw that with several of the moves he made. I did find it interesting, Joel Erickson pointed this out to us when we had him on last segment, that Carolina's interview list is, did he say all offensive coaches?
That wouldn't surprise me.
And again, the Final Four this year, all offensive. Last year, all offensive, the Final Four coaches in the playoffs. You look at the Final 8, it's 13 of the 16 coaches over the last 2 years. Carolina's list, Sean Payton, I saw they're interviewing Ken Dorsey. I believe today they had some interest in Ben Johnson from Detroit, Frank Reich, Jim Caldwell. You think that's the route, or you go to the Colts sprinkling in some defensive coaches? I think you've mentioned Dan Quinn and Raheem Morris.
Well, I like Raheem Morris, to be honest with you. That is entirely dependent then, Kevin, on who you get as your offensive coordinator, right? I mean, whoever it is.
And that's the biggest knock of the Dan Quinn resume. You look at what happened when Kyle Shanahan left Atlanta, his tenure bottomed out. How do you sustain that from a defensive side? And if you look at the trend right now in the NFL, it certainly is shifting to that. I know Danny want to talk a little bit about Jeff Saturday. Morning, Danny. Danny.
Hey.
Hey, sorry about that.
Oh, no worries. Just hypothetically, if Saturday were to be hired, how in any way does any quality candidate in the future ever take an interview with the Indianapolis Colts with Jim Irsay as the head coach?
That's a fair point.
I mean, without having a resume that even feels, I mean, obviously as a player, fantastic, but from a coaching standpoint, it's half a page of a resume versus some of these guys that have been doing this, that live it, breathe it, and they are the real deal. How does anybody want to come to Indianapolis in that case? And secondly, why didn't Kevin Maui just go ahead and put his name in the pot instead of coming down to Lipscomb Academy?
Yeah,
I don't know. Maybe they're paying better at Lipscomb. I don't know.
Thank you, Danny, for the call. It is a very fair point. Obviously, when you look at the NFL, it's still one of 32, but I do think there are some questions around the league that you have of, okay, why wasn't Sean Payton totally interested? Why wasn't Jim Hart? Is D'Amico Ryans view the Colts a little bit lower on the rung than some of these other jobs? I think that's a fair question to ask yourself there. On the Kevin Mawae front, for those who missed it, Colts assistant offensive line coach taking the high school job at Lipscomb Academy.
I mean, that kind of speaks of like, you know what, I'm just going to go back home, right, and hang out. It's kind of like
he played for the Titans for a long time,
right?
If I'm not mistaken.
I mean, he's a great player there. To me, that's the equivalent of the guy that has worked in. Nothing against high school football. I'm not saying that, but that's hey, Jim worked in corporate finance for a long time, and now he actually moved back to his hometown. He's working at Lowe's. It's like, I got to have something to do. And I'm just heading home and chilling.
Jake, to Danny's first point, that was kind of the Dane Fife comment I was making earlier when I was on with Dan on Friday's show. Dane seems to be content with Jeff Saturday getting the head coaching job. And what I said to Dane, and again, not like I know the entire 2002 IU basketball team Rolodex of what they did professionally after their playing careers in Bloomington, but if Scott Dolson would have hired Dane Fife when he hired Archie, or I guess Glass hired Archie, or Mike Woodson, I think we all would have nodded our head and said, oh yeah, Dane Fife, he's got a resume that deserves being the Indiana University basketball coach.
Right.
Whether what he did at Fort Wayne, the combination, ex-player, Fort Wayne, Michigan State, all of that. But if Scott Dolson would have hired Tom Coverdale, or isn't Kyle Hornsby like a doctor?
Yes, he is. That is correct.
So if he would have hired Kyle Hornsby, that would have been the Jeff Saturday hire of you're hiring the ex-player that has no coaching resume. Whereas a guy like Cato June or a guy like Reggie Wayne, isn't Kyle Devan coaching?
Is he?
I'm trying to think of like an ex-player from that era that is coaching. I thought Kyle Devan was a Ball State for a little bit.
I think I told you when
that would be the difference. Ex-player, but you have a professional resume that actually compares to some of these other qualified candidates. Mike Woodson, again, he has that. He's an ex-player, but he also coached in the NBA for a long, long time. In Jeff Saturday's case, he doesn't have that.
When Jeff Saturday was named as the interim, I recall because I was doing the weekly podcast I do with Derek, and the news came out, and Derek said, oh, they hired a former player. And I said, oh, Reggie Wayne? No. Cato June? No. David Thornton, who works in the organization? No. Jeff Saturday? Oh, okay. But I think it was so against the grain that was kind of the point, was it was intended to be one that was so outside the box that if it worked, you were going to have no choice but to say that was brilliant. And I think that was by design. And it just didn't work out the way that Jim Irsay at the time had intended. So then the question becomes, does he say, you know what, it just didn't work out, or does he now double down? I mean, that's kind of the point.
James Mungro coached at DePaul? Running backs coach?
Really?
I always liked him as a player.
He was a good player.
Did he have Peyton's record-breaking touchdown? Didn't he have one of them?
I know Brandon Stokely caught the 49th.
Mungro the 48th. Was it supposed to be edge, and then he told Mungro to go in there?
Kyle Devan is coaching at, I almost said Ortho Carolina. That's the sponsor of Charlotte 49ers. He is the associate head coach and offensive line coach and run game coordinator. I'm the run game coordinator. What do? I coordinate the run game. Okay.
On the Colts head coaching front, again, it sounds like Dan Quinn heading to Arizona for a second interview. Been reported that the Colts would like for him to come to Indianapolis at some point this week for a second interview there. Mike Kafka to Houston for a second interview. So that is probably the script for this week. Coaches that are now no longer in the playoffs getting second interviews around the league, because you cannot talk to the four coaches. In the Colts case, there's four coaching this weekend that are still left in the playoffs. You cannot talk with them until Monday. That would be D'Amico Ryans, who they've yet to talk to, and then the other three coaches they all have met with once. Brian Callahan, the OC with the Bengals, Eric Bieniemy, the offensive coordinator of the Chiefs, and Shane Steichen, the offensive coordinator.
Callahan, very well liked by Peyton Manning, correct?
The Eagles, yeah.
Worked with him in Denver?
Ryans and Callahan, those would be the two atop my list. But yeah, the Callahan history with Peyton and other quarterbacks as well. And yes, he is the son of Bill Callahan.
Morris would be atop my list.
And he's a guy they can bring in this week for a second interview. I do think there's a lot of mutual interest on that front. Again, a head coach at the age of 32, Raheem Morris. He's now, gosh, what was that, 13 years ago?
Seems to check a lot of boxes as a guy, and you know, he's learned a little bit about how to be a head coach. I don't know. I think he's interesting.
Continue this conversation, get back into the Myles Turner convo as well. Tony East joins us in 10.
You had a solid retirement dream. Sell your home in a few years, bank the equity, downsize, and travel. But inflation and recession has you wondering if all your hard-earned equity will still be there. What if you could recession-proof your equity right now? You can with TrueHold. TrueHold will buy your home for its best current value before a recession can erode it. You get to bank all the cash now and live in your home for as long as you want. And TrueHold covers all property taxes, insurance, repairs, and maintenance. And since TrueHold pays your home's current value in cash now, it's yours to do whatever you'd like. Don't wait for inflation, recession, and interest rates to erode your home's value. Visit TrueHold.com and discover how much TrueHold will buy your home for today. Based on its best current value, not what's coming. Call 1-855-300-9993 or visit TrueHold.com. The smarter, faster way to cash out on your home's value without having to move. That's TrueHold.com.
Certainly some joint pain going to arise in the next few days for all of us out there shoveling snow. And if you need help in the joint pain department, QC Kinetics is where you need to call. They are the nation's leader in this exciting treatment of regenerative medicine, getting real and lasting relief for your joint pain. They use highly concentrated healing agents from your own body to restore and repair damaged tissue. If you have ongoing joint pain from arthritis or injury, you need to call QC Kinetics, and don't just assume that steroids or surgery or pain pills are your only options. Times have changed, and regenerative medicine can get you moving again with no downtime. Thanks to QC Kinetics, this amazing treatment option is now available for folks like you and me who are sick and tired of joint pain. They've got locations in Eagle Creek, Greenwood, and now Carmel as well. So call QC Kinetics, 317-559-PAIN for a free consultation. Again, locations all over town, Eagle Creek, Greenwood, and up in Carmel. That is QC Kinetics, 317-559-PAIN.
With PatriotSoftware.com, accounting and payroll, keep your time and money.
Mike Capel here, serial entrepreneur. We entrepreneurs are always improving our listening skills. My dad told me at age 29, Michael, you're a man now. You're about to be married. You have responsibilities. You'd be a fool to start your own business. I did what any loving son would do. I started 5 of them. I didn't listen to my dad, but I have learned to listen to my customers, which is why my 5th successful business, Patriot Software, created accounting software to help non-accountants like me keep accurate accounting records. Go to patriotsoftware.com, use promo code RADIO, and get 2 months of accounting software free. That's patriotsoftware.com.
PatriotSoftware.com, accounting and payroll, keep your time and money.
The new year is here. Time for a change. Start a recession-resistant new career in the high-demand IT field with My Computer Career in just months. Already in IT? Build your cybersecurity skills and prep for thousands of open positions employers nationwide are desperate to fill. Attend classes live online or on campus, and financial aid is available to those who qualify, including the GI Bill. Make this your year. Go to mycomputercareer.edu and take the free career evaluation today. That's mycomputercareer.edu.
Every pro is an MVP to us. As a Lowe's MVP's rewards member, you can earn bonus points when you shop select products and brands. Then redeem them for exciting rewards like tools, sports memorabilia, e-gift cards, and more. Join today to become a member and start earning. Bonus points calculated before taxes and fees after applicable discounts, if any, subject to program terms while supplies last. Points expire at end of calendar year. Visit Lowe's.com/MVP's bonus points for details.
Why do challenge flags only exist in football? Think how useful they'd be in real life.
Like when you're positive it's not your turn to walk the dog. Challenge flag. The neighbor's kid says it wasn't their ball that dented your car door. Challenge flag. Your friend paid you back, but you definitely don't remember that? Boom. Challenge flag. Imagine settling a disagreement with an instant replay. Why isn't the world like that? I guess it's because it's technically impossible. But it's nice to dream about. You know one thing no one would ever challenge? Protecting your home and auto with Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company, affiliates, and other insurers.
The Pacers return to the field house to face the Chicago Bulls this evening at 6:30 on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
You're listening to Kevin and Query on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Talked a lot about Myles Turner a little bit in the 7:30 segment. Again, 2 weeks from Thursday, the NBA trade deadline. And I'm just having, I don't know, maybe when deadlines approach, I'm just getting nervous. I know I feel like prom is approaching. All of a sudden, I'm sweating like, oh my gosh.
Who'd you take to prom?
All this. Lauren Dusing.
Okay.
Great girl. Yeah, how about yourself?
Kathy Frisch. And my understanding is her mother just passed, so my condolences there. She lives in Memphis now. But junior prom at North Central was juniors only. Or it was only junior prom. Kathy was a senior. I was a junior. She was a senior. But you only get 1 year to go to prom. What's that?
That's weird. I've never heard it like that.
That's a good question. My guess would be at North Central only because of the size of the school, maybe. I don't know. But it was literally, as a junior, you have prom. As a senior, you have grad dance.
Not familiar with the grad dance.
Oh, it was great. Grad dance, and then we had blast off, which was like a lock-in. They gave away it was the 2 grand prizes. They had all kinds of door prizes at blast off. My sister's year, they gave away a Ford Mustang. That was the grand prize. There were 2 grand prizes my senior year, and they were.
Did you go to Park Tudor or Orchard?
Well, she went to school with John Gigante, whose dad was a car dealer. That probably helped. My senior year, they were There were 2 grand prizes, and they were dorm entertainment sets that had like stereo, CD changer, VCR, TV, the whole deal. I kid you not. 2 people won it, and there were 2 people who had already signed up to be roommates with each other in college. What are the odds of that?
Where did you guys have prom?
Prom was at the Murat, and grad dance. I think prom and grad dance may have both been at the Murat, but our prom was definitely there. The Pologenic men played our prom. The Chosen Few played our grad dance. It was fun. It was a lot of fun.
You know, again, when prom approaches, I start to get a little nervous. Oh my gosh, here it is. Oh boy, you know, all the inevitable questions that you think about with prom. And I don't know, maybe that's a little bit with the Myles Turner extension. Not necessarily deadline, but I think in reality, the trade deadline has to be that because, as we've said all along, if you don't get him to sign an extension, in my opinion, you have to move him. And I've just started to look a little bit bigger picture with this, Jake, and realized, wow, if you extend him and the money you're going to give Tyrese Haliburton, deservedly so, this offseason, you're going to be in a totally different cap situation as a franchise moving forward. And I just think that position, a la running back in the NFL, is a little bit more easily replaceable. And I know that sounds like a shot at Turner, who's an extremely effective player on both ends of the floor for you, but I don't like paying big guys into their 30s. Ryan mentioned this on Twitter. Turner's soft, but easy to say trade him, tank, and draft somebody, and then they turn out to be Goga.
I mean,
it's a good point.
Yeah. By the way, we also had sororities at North Central, and they each had their own respective dance. The Dolls winter dance.
In high school?
Yeah, Dolls, and then QOH. I was a coach for QOH. During the Powder Puff football season, but they each had a respective winter dance and like a spring formal. It's quite the social affairs at North Central.
Now, was the Powder Puff resume or the Hebron Christian resume for Jeff Saturday more deserving of
Kevin Mawai is leaving. That
you going to be his OC down there?
Yes, and I have on my resume that I was the defensive coordinator for QOH 1990. I still have the mug. I still have the Stein. QOH coach 1990. Hell, I'm qualified. Sign me up. Put it on my resume.
Ryan, I obviously understand, what Goga has turned into.
Resume means resume when you have that on there.
I do think if you look at guys that are up there in the blocks in the NBA right now, guys like Nick Claxton, Walker Kessler, what Robert Williams has meant to Boston, I do feel like you can find those guys kind of late first rounders. Great athletes, block shots, and catch lobs. That's your job. as a big guy. Again, Turner, great three-point shooter, not really a lob guy. So he brings a different skill set, but I just look at that as easier to find than elite wing, which, in my opinion, has to come through the draft, and therefore trading Turner would help you out in getting more draft picks, package that up, move north in the lottery, and take the scraps behind Wembanyama.
Or Wembanyama himself.
You imagine Pacers 2% chance to win the lottery and they win it?
Isn't that, I mean, San Antonio probably would, right? Or Orlando. They seem to always win. Tony next, is that right?
Yes, Tony East. Talk more about this coming up next.
The Ride with JMV.
Matt Painter joins us. How does it feel to be over that 400 mark?
You just move to the next game. It's really not that big a deal. Obviously, we've had some really good players at Purdue and some really good coaches. The thing that I like is I think we're continuing to get better. Our program's getting better. Product's getting better. We're doing a better job of evaluating and bringing guys in here that fit. It makes it enjoyable. It makes it fun. This is a fun group to coach.
The Ride with JMV.
Weekdays 3 to 6
on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
The NFL playoffs are heating up, and the easiest way to get into all the action is with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. New customers, join today to get started with $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Just sign up with promo code PLAY. Don't miss out. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
21 plus in select states. First online real money wager only. Bonus issued is non-withdrawable free bets that expires in 14 days. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG in Colorado, Iowa, Maryland, Michigan, New Jersey, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Illinois, Virginia, and West Virginia. 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT STEP to 53342 in Arizona. 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut. 1-800-9-WITH-IT in Indiana. 1-800-522-4700 in Wyoming and Kansas or visit ksgamblinghelp.com in Kansas. 1-877-770-STOP in Louisiana, 1-877-8-HOPE-NY, or text HOPE-NY, 467-369 in New York. Tennessee Redline, 1-800-889-9789 in Tennessee.
Bowling, 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 keep them balls a-rolling. Bowling, bowling, bowling. Royal Pin.
The U.S. Open is returning to Royal Pin Woodland. Start the major PBA tournament off with Bowl with the Pros on January 29th with 2 squad times available, 4 p.m. and 7 p.m. Bowlers of all ages are guaranteed to bowl with 6 of the PBA's top professionals competing in the U.S. Open. Don't stop there. Get your tickets to watch the bowlers compete for the major title and Green Jacket live on Fox. 2 shows available. Visit bowl.com/US Open to sign up to Bowl with the Pros and get your tickets to the live finals. Or call Woodland at 317-844-4099. That's 317-844-4099.
Royal Pin. Bowling, bowling. Royal Pin. Bowling.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
WIBC HD2 W298BB WIBC HD3 W228CX Indianapolis. The Pacers return to the Fieldhouse to face the Chicago Bulls this evening at 6:30 on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
You're listening to Kevin and Query on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
It is a 7 o'clock tip tonight, Pacers and Bulls. So after that 4-game road trip for Indiana, back at home, and then, boy, they get out of here before the weather turns, and they go to Orlando for a back-to-back coming up tomorrow night. And then back at Gainbridge Fieldhouse Friday to take on the Bucks, and then Sunday in Memphis. So kind of an interesting week with this back-to-back here against 2 teams below them in the standings, although I think Chicago might be tied after last night. And then obviously 2 of the best teams in the league coming up Friday and Sunday. To talk more about all of this, Tony East, Locked On Pacers, Forbes, SI.com, T East NBA on Twitter. He joins us now. Tony, I do want to talk about Myles Turner, Buddy Hield, trade deadline, all of that, which I know we've talked about a lot, but I feel like with the deadline nearing, it's good to focus there. But how about the latest on Tyrese Haliburton and this evaluation date that I believe was supposed to be Thursday?
Yeah, we could see him yesterday at practice for the first time getting shots up. And yes, I believe the 2-week reevaluation date was 2 weeks from the 12th, which would be the 26th, which you are correct is this Thursday. But, he said late last week that he had started running again, which is good news. After having a knee thing, being able to run and get back into game shape is good news. And Rick Carlisle told us yesterday in the media portion that he was able to participate in a lot of the non-contact portions of practice, including doing some full court work. So it seems like the knee part of it, things are going pretty well. He's on the road to recovery there, but still, I think the elbow thing is, I don't know what the right word is, the one that will dictate his return date, I guess. But he is getting some shots up now, which is good. That's the first time I've seen him do that since the injury. And he said his hope is early February, but it's ultimately up to medical staff and things like that. But if that's the case, it could be closer than further if that's up to him.
Tony, do you believe that this losing skid has redirected in any way, shape, or form the Pacers' approach to their retool/rebuild?
Yeah, it kind of has to a little bit, right? Like if they were considering this season as any sort of playoff push kind of season, we can make some small upgrades and be the 6th seed and this and that. That probably is off the table in your mind now. So I think it kind of has to refocus your planning, right? I don't know if they were even thinking this way because all offseason, the front office said, "Hey, we got this new long-term thinking approach, and we're not going to go year by year or 2 year by 2 year, whatever." Instead, it was and this really started last year at the trade deadline when they got younger. With basically every move they made, they're thinking big picture, longer term, and their two key core players are 22 and 20 years old, right? Like this iteration of the Pacers is not set to be at its best for another half decade, if that. This stretch where they go from 23 and 18 to 23 and 25 in 10 days, that has to change your focus to you really have to maintain your long-term thinking. There can't be any smaller moves now that just add, a veteran whose contract is shorter term. Doesn't make sense anymore, right? You're not going to propel yourself into the postseason now. The Heat and the Knicks are separating themselves in the standings. That's just not an option anymore. So can they still find upgrades that are under contract for a long time or are going to be a restricted free agent and can be a long-term fit? Yes, that still is possible. It's still possible for them to be the word everybody loves is buyer and get better as long as the player they're buying is going to be around for a while. And it still, of course, makes sense to, potentially if they wanted to be a seller and get assets for their veterans. And that's all the easiest way to think long-term. But I think that the way they're thinking has to have changed is they can't be thinking short-term with any moves now. It just doesn't make any sense given their record and spot in the standings.
Again, he's Tony East, T-East NBA on Twitter. He joins us here on the Payless Liquors hotline. Tony, something that I've come across in covering the Colts now for a decade is like, okay, does this general manager or president, do they rank other positions higher than others? And in Chris Ballard's case, he's made it very clear that he does not operate in that mindset. I'll pay a running back, I'll pay a guard, I will pay a linebacker, I will draft those positions high. So I'll ask that same question for Kevin Pritchard, and I guess I'll preface it by saying I would assume he kind of is of the same thinking of Ballard based off how he's handled the big man position in years past. I mean, Turner and Sabonis, he kind of rode that out for quite a while. Obviously drafted Goga, somewhat high as well. So have you ever got the inkling from Pritchard that, maybe he doesn't value other positions positively or negatively like some others?
Yeah, that makes sense that he values them about the same. And I think that the thinking from some of the front office or just in general the team is like the way the NBA is trending is this. The term is often positionless basketball, which I think is a silly way to think about it. But it's like if you have skills in the NBA now with the way it's so spaced out and the way shooting is so important, and if you can be mobile and shoot some threes, right, you can play any position and fit, right? You can influence the defense or offense in a significant way. Like the Cavs are doing great this year in the East, right? And they start 2 centers and 3 guards, right? There's very few wings on that team, whereas other teams, Toronto last year got the 5 seed. They started 4 guys who are 6'9", right? Their team has like this whole media thing that called Project 6'9", right? Like there's so many different styles now in the league, and the way it's trending towards just skilled players who can space things out or be athletic and take space and seize opportunities and be good defensive players, right? It's less about fitting into a rigid position group or being called a position. Now, being taller is still better in basketball, and there's a reason that the Pacers have, for forever been chasing a power forward, because being tall and mobile is as good as it gets with the way the league has played. So I think there's still positions that they need that are in the traditional way. But I think that with the NBA trending towards this positionless basketball style where skills are more important than size and previous thinkings, the Pacers are not necessarily ranking any position above another, but are instead chasing skills and fit and things like that.
Tony, what player in this 7-game stretch, with Tyrese Haliburton being out and the Pacers kind of having to reshuffle the way they're mixing the drink, what player has missed on their opportunity? Is there anybody who has underperformed and it was like, man, that was really a good chance for them?
That's a good question. The guy I think that's lost the most without Tyrese Haliburton is Buddy Hield, right? They have fantastic chemistry. Tyrese has said all the time he thinks that he understands Buddy better than any other player in the league. And, of course, for his whole career, they've been teammates, so that makes sense. But Hield is not playing as well without Haliburton around to set him up or understand when to get him the ball and in one spot and at what time. They have fantastic chemistry, but it's not like he's a guy whose skill set allows him to just step up and take over games in the absence of Haliburton. The hard part is it's really hard to find a player who can do that very easily. So he's a natural guy that came to my mind when you asked that question, just as okay, this guy is one of their best scorers outside of Tyrese Haliburton, 17.5 points per game, wonderful shooter, and he's had his first 2 games. He hadn't had a game before the injury where he didn't hit a 3 this season, and he's had 2 during the losing streak, right? So by default, you think of him as a guy who hasn't quite met the level that they need during this streak, although I think their new starting 5, if they stick with it, which it seems like they will, with T.J. McConnell running the show, did get him ignited and got him involved. He had 4 threes in Phoenix and looked like the Buddy Hield we've seen for much of this season. The other guy I would single out is Andrew Nembhard, who he's still a fantastic passer, has done a good job getting guys the ball and in their spots, and has plenty of assists during this stretch, but he can't quite get all the way to the rim on his drives all the time yet, so he can't really break down the defense in a way that Haliburton and McConnell can, and he's still learning the speed of the NBA. Like, he played point guard his whole life, sure, but it's totally different to play it at the pro level when all the players are bigger, faster, stronger, as every rookie has said for all of time. So I think he had those 2 games with Tyrese out on the first road trip where he played pretty well, but now that he's the full-time point guard and other teams can scout him and really prep for it, I think he's the guy that hasn't, especially in the scoring department, stepped up in a way that the Pacers have needed. They really need someone to run the show and get things organized and play well, and Nembhard hasn't really done that. Besides he's had a couple solid games mixed in there, but I think he's the guy that's been the furthest from what they've needed during the stretch so far.
Tony, I'm admittedly having some reservations about potentially handing Myles Turner the contract extension that it seems like he wants and his camp is seeking. I don't think there's any to deny that Turner is a very good player, an important piece for Indiana, and I would say one of the few disappointments of this season has been the young big guys not taking a step forward to maybe you could feel a little better about moving on from Turner if you had seen more from Isaiah Jackson or Jalen Smith or Goga Bitadze. Having said all that, in your opinion, could you weigh out, maybe the pros and cons to giving Myles Turner that extension?
Yeah, the pro is that he's good, and obviously, right, and they've seen that for years. But finally, this year, he's always said he feels like he has not scratched the surface of his potential, and he could do more and really harness his skills. But this year, he actually has the chance in his seizing it. Right, that's been something that for his whole career hasn't really been the case. Like even games Sabonis would miss, or Turner playing with the bench, he never really took advantage of the chance to show that stuff in the way he has this year, right? With more opportunity, with a roster that kind of fits his offensive skill set, with the scheme that it makes more sense for him. He's been really good. Career year in basically every number, right? And that's huge for him. There's a reason that we're even talking about this, right, is because he's playing so well this year. If he was averaging the same stats as last year or, wasn't fitting in the way that people presumed he potentially could, there's no way they'd be considering an extension, right? So the pro is that he's good and he fits with his core, and defense at the 5 spot is massively important. But yeah, you're right. You're right to say that there's got to be trepidation about, like, I read in one report that if the Payton numbers are like a starting point for negotiations, that's got to be scary for the Pacers, right? Like that's a ton of money to commit to anybody. Even Payton, it was a ton of money to commit to a big man, right? And so thinking about the finances of what that means, especially when Tyrese Haliburton and Benedict Mathurin are cheap for now, but very soon Tyrese Haliburton's payday is coming up, right? So it's not like they're going to have all this cap space to have all this flexibility forever. If you commit to Turner, you're getting close to, okay, we don't have a ton of resources to really add to this team or transform it the way we maybe want to. So they have to be kind of cost conscious still. And if he's the guy that they think is the perfect fit at the 5, great. Then you go for it there and call it a day. But they have to be, you have to be careful with all of this stuff and giving him a ton of money to go into his 30s at the 5 spot with, like I said, positionless basketball sort of coming to take over the NBA. They just have to be careful about what that could mean for their team long term.
Can you, and again, Tony East with us, covers the Pacers for Forbes, SI.com, Locked On Pacers, a great daily podcast on, of course, the Indiana Pacers. Can you explain what that extension would look like from Indiana's point of view versus how other teams could offer Turner this summer?
Yeah, this renegotiation extension thing is the reason that the Pacers have this chip that no one else has, and it's really helpful for them prior to the trade deadline to say, hey, we could keep him, you better up your price and things like that. But the way it works, some people have already heard this, but it's like because they have cap space this year and because Turner has been a member of the Pacers for a certain amount of time, they're able to actually just straight up his salary this season, right? Give him a raise while the season is ongoing, and that's extremely unusual. I think the last player that had it happen to them was Robert Covington with the 76ers in 2016, I want to say. It's very rare that a team has a veteran who's good, is good enough to want to keep them for longer, and has significant cap space to be able to raise their salary, and the Pacers are in that spot. So they are able to pay Turner more or even money than what he may project that he would get this summer in free agency. What that number is, is that $25 million a year, right? Is that a four-year, $100 million contract he thinks he can get elsewhere? Because you look at the center market, Yusuf Nurkic signs for $17.5 million per year. Mitchell Robinson signs for $15 million a year. Like, he's better than those guys, right? You've got to think he would get, closer to 20, 22 if that's the market out there for him. And he signed for $18 million, 4 years ago when the salary cap was $108 million. Now it's going to be in the 130s. So, just based on that, even if you think he's the same level of player he was back then, just from a percentage of the cap perspective, he should be, starting in the low 20s million. So, or for 4 years for $90 million, 4 years for $100 million makes some sense. Just using those factors to kind of think about his money, so that they could add some money onto his deal this year, and then make it so the new money is equal to that or more than that if they want to keep him. And no one else can give him that extension. No one else has the space to do that. So they have an advantage in that they could give him the money that he might require before anyone else, but it's tricky with the mechanics and the timing to do that because then you can't trade him or you can't. That's it. You've committed to that path. So they have to consider all of these things. March 1st is the deadline for that renegotiation. So we'll see what they actually end up on because there's a lot at play with this one.
Tony, the Pacers, after playing tonight at home against Chicago, they go to Orlando, right, Kevin? Is that right?
Yeah, back to back.
So, Tony, if you get a call tomorrow morning and they go, hey, we got a problem, the flight was the baggage was too much so that we had to kick 2 guys off the plane and you've got to drive them to Orlando, and so it's your job to drive them to Orlando. Who do you think would be the 2 most fun guys to do the road trip with?
Can I get to Orlando quick now? How do the Pacers keep getting away with this? That the 2 snowiest days Indy has had all year, they play in Miami and Orlando.
I was going to say, you might need to rethink who you bring. You might need to bring some shovelers.
Yeah, I'm bringing the guys who have the best snow pants to help me make it.
Goga.
yeah, he'll be ready. That's a good question. I've actually been asking a couple guys about this just because they've talked about the team environment being so perfect this season for what they're doing, about who is the funniest guys on the team. And James Johnson gets a lot of love, and he's a really interesting guy. He's been in the league for a long time, played for a bunch of franchises. I would want him, although I think from a snow situation, he lives in Miami. I don't know if that's necessarily the perfect pick, but I think I'd pick James Johnson and Tyrese Haliburton. They have great camaraderie. They're great for the team. in terms of connecting people and talent. I think they'd have a lot of funny things to say and fun things to say, and would be a good way to use my time driving down to Orlando at 1,000,000 miles per hour to actually make it on time.
I would vote for T.J. McConnell.
McConnell would be good.
Pittsburgh guy, and I was fortunate to do the Thanksgiving food giveaway with the Pacers and Wheeler Mission, and T.J. McConnell was next to me, and we had some great chats.
Yeah,
fun dude.
He has a different handshake thing that he does with every guy on the roster, so you could tell that he has fun with that. He seems like O'Shea Brissett seems like he'd be cool.
He was the other one that I was with, and little chill guy. I believe
Plus he has the same first name as Ice Cube. That's cool, right?
Yeah, I think his significant other's a Cowboys cheerleader.
Really?
Uh-huh.
That's correct.
We might have to deviate through Dallas, right?
Tony, anything on the Rui Hachimura trade front that you think impacts the Pacers? We saw the former lottery pick from Gonzaga move to the Lakers yesterday. Obviously doesn't play the same position as Myles Turner, but any trickle-down effect or anything you found interesting with that deal?
Yeah, Shams Charania reported that the finalists were the Lakers, Suns, and Pacers, right? So the interesting part there, obviously, is that the Pacers were included. And look, he's a young power forward. I suppose that makes sense. So there's also a reason that the Wizards are trading a former top 10 pick in lieu of other forwards. So I wouldn't read a ton into what the price was or anything there. Look, I think that the Lakers, every time they do anything, there's a big microscope put on them just because LeBron James is on their team. But by trading for Rui, they will now have less cap space next summer to actually sign guys. So it's harder for them to add to their team in the summer. So they might be a little more inclined to make some trades during the season now. And they've been connected to the Pacers for time and time and time at this point. And I know the Russell Westbrook trade has been discussed ad nauseum at this point. I mean, I suppose it goes from now 1% likely to 2% likely or something like that, but it just doesn't make enough sense for either team at this stage to actually do it. So the Lakers could be more active, I suppose, but I don't think that in terms of any impact on the Pacers. If anything, the Wizards, who are behind the Pacers in the standings, got worse, right? So in that way, maybe they're more likely to make the play, and maybe that's the most direct impact hit from this deal, but not a ton of ripple effects, I think, from that one.
I think if you factor in disparity between market size and marketability of a franchise, the Wizards are the most obscure franchise in the NBA. Like, you're playing in a big market. I don't even think people in Washington care about the Wizards, right?
No, they don't care about the Commanders.
Yeah, I mean, they're all like, I'm actually from Chicago. I'm a Bulls fan. I mean, that's just my 2 cents on the Wizards, for what that's worth.
Tonight's... Go ahead, Tony.
They've probably been the worst managed team in the league for the last 4 or 5 years.
I know.
Quietly.
And remember, I mean,
Bradley Beal's threatening to leave.
They had that little stretch there where they were playing the Pacers in the playoffs, and it was kind of like a little rivalry that was fun there for a year or two. But
Gortat, that's a guy I'd like to drive with. He could shovel some snow.
There's no doubt.
His pet pig, Marcin Gortat. Tony, thank you.
Yeah, guys, thanks for having me.
That's Tony East right there on the
What's
Payless
this about a pet pig?
Liquors hotline. Gortat has a pet pig.
Does he really?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Marcin
Gortat. Who else is on those Wizards?
Salvador Dali had a pet anteater. That'd be an awesome pet, wouldn't it?
Boy, I'm afraid that anteater would turn on me.
What do you mean? Well, they turn around slowly. I don't think they're very fast at all.
Man, Gortat had some wild hair. Not much of it, but when he did, he would kind of like a little mohawk. Bradley Beal and John Wall, right? That was the early backcourt on those Wizards teams.
Were good players. Did you see John Wall caught some heat recently about former Pacer Tyler Hansborough? Did you hear that?
Yeah, something about was it?
John Wall did a podcast where he said that the reason that he had grown up a North Carolina fan was a diehard North Carolina fan, and that when he went on, John Wall is a native of the Raleigh-Durham area, and that when he went on his official visit to University of North Carolina, that Tyler Hansborough said, "I don't talk to recruits. Like, don't talk to me," and was really rude to him. And so John Wall said, "So I went to Kentucky," and like multiple people that were there were like, "That's totally untrue, completely made up." So who knows? But
Tyler Hansborough strikes me as a little quirky.
That's probably fair, right? Obviously the classic story in that regard is the story of Larry Bird when he was a freshman at Indiana, and he roomed with Jim Wisman, who, was of means and had flashy wardrobes, and Bird didn't have much, so he felt uncomfortable in general But then the first day of pickup basketball, he went and was shooting around with like Scott May and Quinn Buckner or whatever, and Kent Benson came over and was like, freshmen are not allowed to shoot with us or talk to us. Like, go over there, and completely outcasted him. And so Bird was like, okay, and he left. And that's why Bird said, I got great joy every time we played whatever team Kent Benson was riding the bench for of just absolutely kicking their ass in the game.
You know, that sounds peak Bird right there.
No question. No question.
Let's lead off the pop quiz coming up in 5 minutes. 317-239-1070. Jake says the hardest question in the history of the pop quiz.
Yeah, I mean, come on.
Today's slate. So
but
good
here's
luck
the
with
thing.
that.
If you think logically, there is one plausible multiple choice answer that would only be listed if it's the correct answer.
That seems like a big hint.
I didn't tell you what question it was.
Hardest question ever, but here's a softball.
Right, exactly. Let's lead off the morning check down with the Pacers tonight.
The Morning Checkdown, brought to you by Ball State Basketball. Get your tickets at ballstatesports.com on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
The longest losing streak in the NBA. That's what the Pacers bring into tonight. 7 games. No one has lost more than 4 in a row. Currently, it'll be the Bulls off a back-to-back. Chicago won at home last night over Atlanta. It's the usual suspects for the Bulls: DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine, Nikola Vucevic. They are a team currently tied with the Pacers in the standings, 9th and 10th. Currently tied for 9th. So the final 2 play-in spots reside with these 2 teams. A 1.5-point underdog, the Pacers, as they try to get their first win without Tyrese Haliburton since his knee and elbow injury a couple weeks ago.
Swoosh, right?
Sorry, swoosh it.
Whoopsh. How's that?
That sounded good.
NBA, thank you. There we go.
Nice.
NBA last night, Milwaukee over Detroit, 150-130. It was Orlando over the Celtics, 113-98. The Bulls, who will see the Pacers tonight, are coming off an 11-point win, 111-100 over the Hawks. And how about former Tech star and Mr. Basketball Trey Lyles, 24 points last night for Sacramento, who is quietly putting together a really good season out west, 133-100 over the Memphis Grizzlies.
I didn't know he was getting consistent run for him.
I don't think he has. They're kind of loaded at that position, but took advantage of opportunity last night, obviously. AP Top 25 college basketball. The new number 1 team in the land, no surprise, the Boilermakers of Purdue. Boiler up over Alabama, Houston, Tennessee, and Kansas State. Rounding out Kansas State is ranked 5th in the country. Rounding out the top 5. Same top 5,
Butler,
by the way,
beat Kansas
for the coaches
State this
poll.
year.
That is correct. Butler hanging their hat on that, by the way.
Not a lot.
Speaking of non-conference true road wins, Indiana has one over Xavier. Xavier now is 12th in the country, 13th in the AP poll, 12th in the coaches poll. Indiana now 2nd in receiving votes. They have 61 votes for the top 25.
Kind of approaching the midway point of the Big Ten, and right now you've got Purdue 8-1, of course, atop the conference. Behind Purdue, nobody has 2 losses. You've got 9 teams with 3 or 4 losses in the Big Ten. Of course, Indiana being one of those teams. They currently sit at 4-4. To the barn tomorrow night. I can't think of a snowstorm and a better place to be than the barn in Minneapolis. That is a 9 o'clock tip from up there. Trace Jackson-Davis, Big Ten Player of the Week, 33 points, 12 rebounds, 4.5 assists, and 4 blocks.
I would say very well deserved.
Well deserved would be an understatement there. And then Purdue, they're back in action Thursday night, 9 o'clock tip as well. That is at Michigan. We mentioned this a little bit earlier with the pending weather forecast. It looks like a lot of the local teams you would think of, they will be out of the city of Indianapolis here midweek. The Pacers go into Orlando. We mentioned IU and Purdue, both traveling out of state. Butler is on the road. I want to say IUPUI is at Fort Wayne. We do have a cancellation here for anybody that was going to the Mad Ants game over at Gainbridge Fieldhouse today. That has been postponed. They were supposed to play the Maine Celtics. So
Maine have some travel issues?
Well, based off what listener Matthew has been tweeting out, some massive snow up in that part of the country. So definitely something to keep an eye on here. That probably was more to do with Maine, I would assume, traveling here.
That's what I mean. I would assume, right?
Obviously, we don't have anything on the ground yet, but something to watch for as this weather forecast starts to turn a little bit tonight, well into tomorrow.
All right, pop quiz is next. 239-1070 is the telephone number. We would love for you to participate, and we will do it on the other side. It's Kevin and Query on a Tuesday, 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
Guys, solve your ED today with an intimacy guarantee. Only at the Indianapolis Men's Clinic. If you don't perform, you don't pay. Call the Indianapolis Men's Clinic at 999-9000. 999-9000.
You don't have to go through yet another year with that knee pain or back pain. Hoosiers with chronic joint pain are getting real lasting relief from QC Kinetics. I'm Kevin Bowen, and you guys know QC Kinetics is the nation's leader in advanced regenerative medicine. Their unique protocols use healing agents from your own body to target aching joints, repairing and restoring damaged tissue so you can move again with no surgery, no drugs, no downtime. Got shoulder pain, excruciating hip pain. If you have any arthritis or pain lingering from another injury, don't let them tell you that steroids or surgery or pain pills are your only options. Call QC Kinetics, locations in Eagle Creek and Greenwood, and one coming to Carmel as well, and see if their life-changing, all-natural treatments can get you living your best life in the new year. This is the future of joint pain management, and appointments are available as soon as the next week, so make 2023 the year you say goodbye to joint pain. Call QC Kinetics today, 317-559-PAIN, Eagle Creek, Greenwood, and coming soon to Carmel. That is QC Kinetics, 317-559-PAIN.
When you're an innovative business, every blinking cursor, every blank page is an opportunity. What will you do with it? Will you make something better or create something new? Our Dell Technologies advisors provide you with tools and expertise to do incredible things. Because we believe there's an innovator in all of us. For advice on smart PCs powered by Intel vPro that's built for business, call a Dell Technologies advisor at 877-ASK-DELL.
Get in zone, AutoZone.
Welcome to AutoZone. Thinking about gas mileage? If your check engine light is on, it may be affecting your MPGs, but the free AutoZone Fix Finder service can help. With the most complete free warning light report backed by technician-verified fixes, you'll know what's affecting your gas mileage and more, and you don't have to drive too far to find the fix. The free AutoZone Fix Finder service is available at all 6,200 stores.
Get in zone, AutoZone.
See details at AutoZone.com.
Meet Joe A,
Hi.
Joe B,
Hello.
and Joe C.
What's up?
3 everyday Joes perfecting their banking with Chase. Joe A is locking his lost debit card with the Chase mobile app. Joe B is cruising toward his new ride with Autosave. And Joe C's Chase banker is helping him budget to go back to school. Tools that help protect, support for what's next. One bank that puts you in control. Visit chase.com/checking. Chase, make more of what's yours.
Chase mobile app is available for select mobile devices. Messaging and data rates may apply. JP Morgan Chase Bank, N.A. member FDIC.
Dan Dockage for Affinity Whole Health. Affinity is the leader in testosterone and hormone replacement therapy, and I got to tell you, I see why. Since I started a testosterone replacement program with Affinity, my energy, mental focus, drive, everything is up, and the physical benefits are amazing. Check them out at feelgreatindy.com. Guys, you can improve the way you look, the way you feel. You can build muscle and lose fat. Affinity will give you the roadmap. Go to feelgreatindy.com. That's feelgreatindy.com.
93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. Your home for Indy sports. Now with even more ways to listen.
Listen on air.
Online at 1075thefan.com.
And on our free app.
Stay connected to all things Indy sports, including the latest news, show blogs, and catch up on what you've missed with our podcast.
We're never more than just a click away.
Download our app at Google Play and on the App Store. From your home for Indy sports.
93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Have you studied? Can you handle the pressure? Sharpen your pencils. It's time for the Pop Quiz with Kevin and Query. Brought to you by Jiffy Lube, Indiana's favorite oil change since 1985.
All right, it is Pop Quiz time. 317-239-1070. I would say one of the more obscure ones in a while.
Yeah. I would think the thrill of being on the radio is going to be the fun part of the pop quiz this morning for somebody.
Did you guys see the note on this weekend's championship games? Currently, both the lines are under 3 points. I want to say it's like maybe a 1-point spread in the Chiefs game, 2 points in the Eagles game. Let me double check that. 2.5 Eagles favored, 1.5 the Bengals are favored. This note here, since 2000, there's been 4 conference championship games with a spread of under 3 points, and none since 2016. And right now, we've got both of them. So on paper, we're supposed to get 2 extremely competitive games, and leading into those games, that's not been what usually happens in the championship. Which, don't we deserve that after how bad the divisional round was?
Yeah, that's fair. Because it was kind of a lackluster divisional weekend, wasn't it?
Good wild card weekend.
Yeah.
Poor divisional. See what happens championship weekend. But yeah, again, both spreads very small right now in those games. I do believe there is a championship-related question or two on the pop quiz. Jake, a number 1 through 8.
Number 1 through 8. I'm going to go with number 4.
Number quattro is who, Parker?
That is Ryan.
Ryan. Good morning,
Yo.
Ryan.
Good morning, fellas. How you doing?
Doing well, Ryan. How are you?
I'm doing great.
Ryan, have you called the program before?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I've talked to you guys.
Ryan, are you a fan of the pending forecast or no?
No, I lucked out. I'm actually off work tomorrow, so I could just sit and watch it come down.
Now, work is where? What line of work are you in?
Sell floors to your home.
That's right. Okay.
Yeah.
And so how did you get a random Wednesday off?
Well, you get 2 days off a week. I'm off every Sunday and Wednesday. So
now, would you prefer that to be consecutive days, or do you enjoy breaking up the monotony of the week with that way?
So I'm a lifelong retail worker, and this is the closest thing a retail worker can get to a set schedule. So I'm happy with it.
Okay.
Ryan, will you go
Sundays for football?
Will you go sledding tomorrow?
Oh, man, I haven't been sledding in years. I don't know if I'd be able to get back up. So,
Ryan, let me ask you, when you were in, let's say, the second grade and you went sledding in the second grade, during that time, if you had to guess, who was the Super Bowl champion that year?
So in 1982, I think that was 49ers.
That is correct, yeah. That's good. So you graduated high school, what, 90, 91?
93.
Do you like the saucer sled, or do you opt for a little bit more of the straighter kind of right angle line?
You know, I'm a Christmas vacation sled guy, so just, if you get the reference, you guys know.
Ryan could be spending tomorrow somewhere where he doesn't want to be, if that's the case. All right, Jake, you want to lead off here?
I will lead you off with question number 1, Ryan. You ready?
Yes, sir.
Purdue is back to number 1 in the Associated Press and Coaches men's college basketball polls. Which other Big Ten team is ranked with them in the top 25? Is it the Hoosiers of Indiana, Rutgers, Illinois, or Purdue is the only ranked Big Ten school?
As a Purdue grad, I'm very happy to say there is no other Big Ten team ranked right now.
Okay.
I can just feel the joy in Ryan's voice saying that answer. Congrats on that, Ryan. Well deserved. Number
Thank
2,
you.
We are coming up on conference championship weekend in the NFL. The winner of the AFC championship game receives the Lamar Hunt Trophy, which I guess could go to his family, depending on what happens on Sunday. What does the winner of the NFC championship game receive? Is it the George Halas Trophy? The Wellington?
Yes, sir. It's the Halas Trophy.
Okay.
Boy, it's no day off today for Ryan.
Question number 3 for you, Ryan. The first NFL championship game to be nationally televised took place in 1951 with the LA Rams beating the Cleveland Browns. Which network carried the game? CBS, NBC, ABC, or Dumont Network?
That's tough. I'm going to say ABC.
All right, number 4, Ryan, of the 16 franchises that have played in the AFC Championship game, only one is undefeated. A, the Patriots, B, the Bengals, C, the Chiefs, D, the Broncos.
That means undefeated within their history of championship games played.
Yes, thank you for clarifying. Yeah.
Sure. Can you run that down again?
Yeah, Chiefs, Bengals, Patriots, or Broncos?
I think the Bengals.
Okay, interestingly enough, and I promise you this was not foreplanned, when you were in the second grade sledding and the Super Bowl that we just talked about, that was the San Francisco 49ers over the Bengals, mind you, took place, where was that game? That's Super Bowl 16, by the way, in 1982. Was it the Orange Bowl in Miami, the Louisiana Superdome, the Pontiac Silverdome in Michigan, or Tampa Stadium? I will tell you, it would be impossible for you to right now go back and walk into the same facility.
Okay, what's the first one?
That'd be the Orange Bowl in Miami.
There we go. Orange Bowl in Miami.
All right.
Sense a little disappointment in Jake's voice. with that one.
Purdue. Ryan, a Purdue graduate, knew that Purdue is, in fact, the only team from the Big Ten currently ranked in the AP or coaches top 25.
Ryan, at this point, what would be considered a successful tournament run for Purdue?
I mean, at this point, considering I work with a shop full of IU guys, we have to get a banner.
Ooh, boy. Now, will you be heading to the Final Four in Houston if that happens?
Probably, yeah.
Or Butler. Was that the Butler UConn national title in Houston? I'm trying to think of the ugly shooting display in that one. Okay, the winner of the AFC Trophy, Lamar Hunt. The winner of the NFC, Ryan was all over this, George House.
Question number 3 is where Ryan, I tried to offer the hint earlier. CBS, NBC, ABC, all plausible answers. The only possibility, the only way, the only reasoning that the Dumont Network would even be listed amongst that group is if, in fact, it is the correct answer, which, Ryan, I'm sad to tell you, it was. Now, it was...
it seems so obvious because it was so obviously wrong.
I know. But here's the thing. The Bengals and the Niners in 82, that was actually in the Pontiac Silverdome. The Pontiac Silverdome. I remember that being a big deal because there was conversation at that point that Indianapolis was going to get a dome. And so it was like, oh, my gosh, this is what it's going to look like and, whatever else. But a valiant effort. Enjoy the day off tomorrow, all right, Ryan?
Enjoy the day off. Enjoy sledding.
Dumont, by the way, Scotty says went bankrupt around 1957. Probably because they spent so much money on the broadcast rights of the 51 NFL championship game between the Rams and the Browns.
Forest Park Golf Course. That's the must for sledding tomorrow. The 9th hole.
Where is that? In Forest
Noblesville.
Park? Okay.
Mm-hmm. You ever been up there?
No, it used to be the Butler Hill.
Great
It was
hideout.
great, but that's gone.
Yeah, can you still get in the bowl? I mean, they still have that hill.
Now the main hill's gone, right? Because it's now those residential student housing.
I guess
right
I'm
behind the
thinking,
stadium.
can you sled onto the field, from the parking lot?
Yeah,
that entrance.
I don't know though because it stands now, right? I mean,
do they have stands in the end zone?
I mean, Starlight Musical was right there. It was right on the other side of that, and it was really good. The Elks Club in Shelbyville, baby. I spent some sledding hills there. I don't know. Are we going to get enough snow to sled tomorrow? Don't we? Doesn't this always happen? Here's what always happens in Indiana.
Are you more skeptical of the Colts head coaching search or the weather tomorrow?
Oh, the weather. 3 weather certainties. Now, tomorrow may be
4 to 8 inches is what they're saying.
I mean, again, that's
tomorrow into maybe a little bit into Thursday.
I think, honestly, you have to get into the double digits in terms of the inches for it to really, make a difference in terms of your travel. I think 4 to 6 inches is kind of a hassle, but that's
a
still
lot of it depends
manageable.
from an ice standpoint.
Yeah, for sure.
And the time of when it falls.
There are 3 certainties every winter cycle in the state of Indiana. 3 absolute certainties. Number 1, there is at least one predicted death storm 20 insert year that never comes to fruition, where it's it completely missed us. That happens at least once a year. Kind of happened around Christmas. Number 2, there is always a storm out of nowhere, and it's usually late in the year, like a week after Valentine's Day, and it's supposed to be 50 and sunny, and all of a sudden it's what in the world? We got 7 inches of snow yesterday. What the hell happened? Nobody saw that come. That happens at least once. And flurries during the opening week of sectionals. Those 3 things, lock, stock, and barrel. And I'm hoping that this is one of them that is a total no-go, but I'll probably be wrong.
It's odd. When you look at the map, it's the metro area, 4 to 8 inches, and then southern and northern Indiana, a lot less on the
you're
snowfalls.
right about the weather. Mother Nature knowing I-70 is amazing.
And I always feel during the race weekend, 465 blocks all the showers from the track.
We would like to think, right?
When is your first IndyCar race, by the way? I meant to ask you that.
First weekend in March, St. Pete, March 5th, I think.
Really? Why did I always feel like there was a February one?
I think there have been a couple times where they've moved it there. They've kind of fluctuated, which I think they really would like to have, and understandably so, date equity so that people in those respective markets are oh, yeah, it's race weekend. But it's March 5th.
We will get you updated on where the Colts are from a head coaching search to round out the show. A couple of names of interest for the Colts interviewing for a second time in other places. We'll explain that. To round out the show, Kevin and Query, 93.5, 107.5, The Fan.
Why does We Grow Hair Indy have the best hair transplant results? Because they have the best technology. And I'm living proof of it. Hey, this is JMV. We Grow Hair Indy has the technology that restored both my bald spot in my crown area and PRP to keep my hairline and non-transplanted hair looking good. This year, they can restore your bald spot and your hairline. Call 317-522-2995. 317-522-2995. Here's Darren Andrews to explain.
Having that strong hairline again completely changes the way you see yourself. It makes a huge difference. A lot of people think the crown cannot be transplanted. It's actually an area of specialty for us with our multi-unit hair grafting.
My hair is going to grow the rest of my life, and that's exactly what I want. Call 317-522-2995 to schedule your free evaluation. That's 317-522-2995, and check out my results at WeGrowHairIndy.com, the gold standard in hair restoration.
Are you kidding me? Gas prices are up again? Somebody has to do something.
Well, someone did. That's why I use Upside.
Upside? What's that?
It's a free app that pays you back real money for every gallon of gas or diesel you buy. I just earned 25 cents back on every gallon of this tank.
So the Upside app is free and you actually get cash back every time you use it? No strings attached?
Yep, it's awesome. Check it out. It only takes a couple of minutes to sign up.
Instead of just watching your dollars go into your tank, start putting money back into your wallet with the free app from Upside. With the price of gas today, it's big news and big money. To cash out of your Upside cash, just transfer it to your bank account, PayPal, or a gift card. Upside users have already earned over $200 million. Now it's your turn. Download the free Upside app and get cash back on every gallon of gas. Use promo code ESPN17 for an extra 25 cents per gallon on your first fill-up. That's code ESPN17. Use code ESPN17 for an extra 25 cents per gallon back in your first fill-up. Cashback's not available in gas in New Jersey and Wisconsin.
At Diamonds Direct, we want to make something very clear. We will absolutely beat the price of any comparable diamond that you find anywhere else. No fine print, no disclaimers, just a rock-solid, unqualified, nationwide price guarantee. This goes for 1-carat diamonds as well as 15 and 20-carat diamonds. You see, at Diamonds Direct, we're more than just another jewelry store. We're part of a world diamond powerhouse with direct access to the world's top diamond mines. We have our own diamond cutters, too, so we are active in every aspect of the diamond market every single day, from source to showroom. So when you see a diamond somewhere else, online or in a store, or from some so-called supplier, just know that apples for apples, you will get a better price at Diamonds Direct. Our volume, our connections, our buying power make this possible, and it's why we've never ever lost a sale due to price. So at a time when value means so much, we invite you to take this challenge and let us prove it. Day in and day out, you will always get a better quality diamond at a better price at Diamonds Direct. Diamonds Direct, your love, our passion. Online at diamondsdirect.com.
The new year is here. Time for a change. Start a recession-resistant new career in the high-demand IT field with My Computer Career in just months. Already in IT? Build your cybersecurity skills and prep for thousands of open positions employers nationwide are desperate to fill. Attend classes live online or on campus, and financial aid is available to those who qualify, including the GI Bill. Make this your year. Go to mycomputercareer.edu and take the free career evaluation today. That's mycomputercareer.edu.
O'Reilly. Be ready for winter weather with Rain-X Advant Edge wiper blades at O'Reilly Auto Parts. Right now, purchase a pair of Rain-X Advant Edge wiper blades and save $10 plus get 2 times O Rewards points. Our professional parts people will even install your new wiper blades for free. Stop by your local O'Reilly Auto Parts today or visit O'ReillyAuto.com.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Indy's #1 for new country.
I got some famous friends.
Nobody plays more new country. 97.1 Hank FM.
The Pacers return to the Fieldhouse to face the Chicago Bulls this evening at 6:30 on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
You're listening to Kevin and Query on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Speaking of country, you just heard that promo. It will be a country artist, Chris Stapleton, that will sing the national anthem at this year's
I like
Super
Chris
Bowl.
Stapleton.
It will be an Indianapolis native that sings America the Beautiful.
Really?
Uh-huh. Kenneth Edmonds.
Oh, sure.
Pride of North Central, also known as Babyface, will be singing America the Beautiful in this year's Super Bowl, and it will be Rihanna who is the halftime show.
My wife is thrilled about Rihanna.
Me too.
Thrilled.
Mark. Okay, Mark. What? I'm old enough to remember, I believe this is it's such a random, brain-dropping Jake Query memory. If you were to look up right now, we were just talking about the fact that 1982 Super Bowl was 41 years ago today. Happy birthday, by the way, to Paul Hurley, my buddy Paul the Mailman. Photographer extraordinaire. Today's his birthday.
Happy birthday, Paul. Happy birthday. I got two to sneak in. Mark Brannigan, Julie Schott. Happy birthday.
Okay. Mark Brannigan and Julie Schott?
Yes.
All right. That Super Bowl 41 years ago in 1982, I'm going to guess that I don't know why I remember this. Just locked in my noggin. If I'm not mistaken, that Super Bowl halftime show was Up With People. Now, do we have a list anywhere of Super Bowl halftime shows of yesteryear?
I think Scotty can fire that one up.
If this is correct, then I am going to not only be so impressed with myself, which I have a fairly often. What's that, Mark?
I said, oh, God.
I was going to say, kind of a low bar for you to be impressed with yourself.
I oftentimes impress myself. But not only, this time I might actually scare myself. That I remember that Up With People was the 1982 Super Bowl halftime show.
I need a snow day tomorrow.
Scotty is feverishly looking it up.
Scotty, if somehow your Wi-Fi doesn't work, it's not the end of the world there. Colts head coaching search. I think a big thing to keep in mind, Scotty gave you the thumbs up, Jay. So
was it Up With People? Yes! Yes! I'm the only person that even remembers Up With People, let alone that they were the Super Bowl halftime show in 1982.
Mark, the only person clapping was who?
One and only Jake.
Well, listen, you got to take little victories where you can. I hope for all of you today that anybody listening, that you yourself today have a little victory, just a little victory today that makes you say to yourself, I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and gosh darn it, people like me.
Turned into Stuart Smalley all of a sudden? What are you doing?
Something to keep in mind, again, Colts head
this
coaching
is the time
search
of show when I really hit my stride.
For this week. You're seeing Dan Quinn heading to Arizona for a second interview. You're seeing Mike Kafka heading to Houston for a second interview. If you're done with your season, you can do that. If you are one of the coaches here on championship weekend, you're not eligible to interview again until Monday. This is where, Jake, I think we're going to start to get into agent creating leverage for client. If you recall last year during the coaching cycle, the names in Jacksonville were not necessarily always Doug Peterson. You had Byron Leftwich and Nathaniel Hackett rumored there, and all of a sudden Denver, I think they got a little panicky. They wanted Hackett.
Right.
And they heard him flirting around with Jacksonville.
For the Rodgers purposes, right?
And so they all of a sudden offer the head coaching job to Hackett. That is something to keep in mind here. Like, if you're the Colts, you might really want to talk to Brian Callahan or Shane Steichen for a second time. But are you willing to be patient and let Dan Quinn potentially get a head coaching job somewhere else?
Right.
Or a Mike Kafka?
I mean, there's some chess that goes into this, right?
And this is the big chess week because it's this awkward state where for the Colts, 3 guys you've already interviewed will coach this weekend. And another guy, D'Amico Ryans, who I think you should interview. Are you willing to be patient enough to wait on a Ryans, wait on a Brian Callahan, Shane Steichen, Eric Bieniemy, but then possibly lose a Dan Quinn, a Mike Kafka, these guys that appear to be heading elsewhere for second interviews early this week?
Good questions. And I'll give the Colts credit for the fact that they don't seem to be a franchise that typically is in response mode. You know, that kind of, we do it this way, and that's the way we do it. But we'll see. I
tend to think Ballard will be patient, but if you really like somebody and you feel like another team is threatening that, you got to act upon it.
Here's a question for you. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, that tomorrow we do in fact get 6 to 8 inches of snow, okay?
Uh-huh.
And it's going to be cold for a while here. When they plow the snow off on the circle. And then you get that like hard kind of crusted like snow that just gets like kind of
just looks like a terrible color.
Correct. Will all remnants of that snow be gone by the time that we know who the Colts head coach is going to be?
That's a good one. What's the temp look like coming up?
It's going to be like in the 30s.
Pretty cold, right?
Yeah. No rain,
Yeah,
to my knowledge.
I've kind of always targeted post Super Bowl, but now I think I might be a late next week guy. You can interview no matter what happens this weekend. So let's say, for example, Cincinnati and Philly win. So Cincinnati, Brian Callahan, Philly, Shane Steichen. Even though they're playing in the Super Bowl, you can interview them during the off week next week. So you could interview them for a second time. And if you feel good about that second interview, maybe you then go ahead and offer the job, and maybe it is a done deal. I think officially it would have to wait until after the Super Bowl. I say we'll still have snow on the ground when the Colts have a head coach.
Okay.
But that's more to do, I think, with Mother Nature.
Okay. But it just seemed to me in the past, and I could be wrong in this, but in my memory, Pagano being hired and certainly Dungy being hired, Scotty can correct me if I'm wrong here, but it felt like those were like maybe a week to 10-day processes.
I just think the NFL has evolved big time.
No, I get it. And the rules change in terms of the availability of when you can talk to coordinators is certainly a factor.
I mean, all 5 are still open, and we're now post 2 weeks after the season's ended. We had 5 openings. We continue to have 5. Mentioned it earlier. Mark's Bears, I think, interviewed double-digit number last year for Eberflus. When Nick Sirianni was hired in Philly, it was a big number as well. But those would be some things to keep in mind. Max is going through a little sleep regression.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been up kind of 3-4-ish. And so I oftentimes will watch the Australian Open on my phone as I'm trying to rock him back to sleep. You know, the American males are doing really well in Australia right now.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that's what I've heard about going to Australia, which is one of the reasons a lot of people like to visit.
Come on.
Just saying.
Ben Shelton is his name, 20-year-old, into the quarterfinal. Tonight we have 2 Americans facing off in the quarterfinal, which means we'll get 1 American in the semi.
I'm embarrassed to ask this. Is Australian a hard court?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know why I was. I mean, I know that French is clay. Obviously, Wimbledon's grass.
The stat that they threw out there the other night when I was watching, 4 U.S. men into round 4. That's the first time it's happened since 2004.
Man, it would be so fun to go to. I'm telling you, high-level tennis, to watch a high-level tennis match is really riveting stuff. Honestly, I mean, it is amazing. It'd be so fun to just take like a week and go to the Australian Open and just sit and watch.
I wish it was a little bit more in our time slot. Like the matches either start at like 10:30 or like 3 a.m. But yeah, Ben Shelton, the first American male, 20-year, I think it's younger than 23 to reach a quarterfinal.
We should go to Outback Steakhouse and watch the Australian Open.
Since Andy Roddick.
Have a Foster's.
In 2003. By the way, shout out to Clyde Christensen for retiring after 43 years.
Really good guy. You know,
Great
he
dude.
was well-liked by all the players where he coached, including here in Indianapolis for a long time. And
I thought he could be a Jeff Saturday coaching staff candidate. And I mean that in all seriousness.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, he's very well-liked, very well-respected.
So yeah, 43 years in the business on that Tampa Bay staff. Signing
and
off.
looked like he was 43 years old.
All right, good luck to all of us tomorrow on the commute in, right?
That's right. That is right.
Pacers in action. 6:30 our coverage begins. Pacers and Bulls. IU back on Wednesday. Purdue on Thursday. Everybody, in all seriousness, safe travels. Sounds like the afternoon commute will be fine, but tomorrow morning a bit dicey. We'll talk.